The young man with an incredibly cunning face is none other than our protagonist, the Demon King Dantalion. Fate has been cruel to him, forcing him to transmigrate into a hellishly difficult game. The character he inhabits? The weakest chicken of them all. Dantalion is one of the 72 Demon Kings. While the title Demon King might sound intimidating, in reality, he ranks 71st out of 72. As a result, his abilities are pitifully weak. You could even call him an experience bag for rookie adventurers grinding levels in their early stages. But fortunately, thanks to the system and his experience as a gamer, Dantalion successfully sent every adventurer who dared invade his dungeon to a collective demise. Not stopping there, he even tricked the sharp-witted shark into giving him 10,000 gold coins, which he used to rebuild his dungeon. From there, he began his journey toward becoming a capitalist. But this entire story began some time ago. As I mentioned earlier, Dantalion was originally an ordinary person who suddenly found himself transmigrated into a game. Back in the real world, he despised his father. In fact, his hatred was so intense that he longed for the day his father would die. And today, that day finally came. His father took his last breath, succumbing to a heart attack. Not that his father was any saint. The man was a criminal, a womanizer, and a greedy old scumbag who brought Dantalion nothing but trouble. Yet, in death, he finally did one good thing for his son. After his father passed away, Dantalion discovered a hidden fortune, 500.000.000 yen stashed in the basement of their home. It seemed his father had known his time was near and had left the money in an easy-to-find spot. At least, that's what Dantalion thought. But in the end, who cares? That's what he told himself. Yes, it didn't matter anymore. There was no point dwelling on it. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains as workers headed to that hellish place they called work. Meanwhile, Dantalion stood there, savoring his coffee and gazing out the window. That's right, he thought. I'm now a NET. Dantalion joyfully declared his newfound freedom. For those unaware, NET is an acronym for not in education, employment, or training, essentially describing someone unemployed and idle, living a secluded life indoors. With his newfound wealth, Dantalion decided to join the ranks of the carefree, embarking on a leisurely new chapter in life. At this moment, he sat leisurely on the sofa, contemplating his future plans with his newfound fortune. Well, it turns out he was a good father after all. With this money, I can buy and do whatever I want, like a house, a car, or even women. Anything I desire could be mine. But honestly, none of that excites me. Just as he thought about this, the doorbell rang. Dantalion's eyes lit up like car headlights the moment he heard it, and he exclaimed, "Ah, it's here." Clearly, he knew exactly who it was. He bolted to the door as fast as the wind. Outside stood a delivery worker, who, upon seeing Dantalion open the door, greeted him politely. "Here's your order. Thank you for choosing our service." But before the delivery worker could finish, his demeanor turned awkward. Why? Because Dantalion had already snatched the package with lightning speed, so fast that the poor worker didn't even get a proper look at his face. Without another word, Dantalion dashed back inside, gleefully jumping onto his bed with the package in hand. Now comfortably lying down, he thought to himself, with all this extra money, I finally managed to buy the bedroom of my dreams. It had cost him a total of 30.000.000 yen, but it was worth every penny. I've made 3 promises to myself, he mused. No work, no friends, no marriage. Work is the absolute worst. I know I'm a selfish jerk, but please, give me a break. As for friends, having them means constantly proving yourself through work or treating them to meals. There's nothing more annoying than that. And marriage? The idea of pledging to spend the rest of my life with someone I love? Disgusting. That's stinking. Selfish. Wretched old man I called Dad made that same promise at least 12 times. He was revolting. There's no way I'm repeating his mistakes. With that, Dantalion resolved to live his best life, playing games on his soft, luxurious mattress. Now this, he thought with a grin, is what I call a lavish life. If this isn't heaven, I don't know what is. Thinking about this, Dantalion grabbed a gaming console and muttered to himself, "It's time to finally play all the games I've been hoarding." I'll 100% complete every single one of them. Just watch. And so, 2 months passed by quickly. At this point, Dantalion let out a deep sigh. Phew, that dungeon defense game is finally done. Took a little longer than expected. Though, he said cheerfully. He then looked at the list of games stored on his console and pondered. What should I play next? Maybe I should try a VR game? While he was still debating, a notification sound suddenly rang out. Catching his attention, Dantalion turned his gaze toward the TV screen, which now displayed a message. You have a new message. The notification puzzled him. A message? What's this about? I don't remember accepting any friend requests. But his confusion was quickly resolved when the screen displayed a follow-up message. Thank you for completing the dungeon defense game. We, the creators of this game, are thrilled that you played it to the very end. After reading the message, Dantalion understood. Oh, it's just a message from the developers. They must have spent quite a bit of time making this. Well, it makes sense, he thought. After all, the game was probably created by some regular office workers. Their job is to butter up players so they'll buy more of their games. Well done, team. The content on the TV screen changed again, now announcing that they would send Dantalion a survey. This sparked even more curiosity in him. A survey? What kind of survey could this be? Soon, the survey appeared on the TV screen, presenting two options. I like cute girls. I like mature women. The survey question, which seemed more like a young adult's love quiz, left Dantalion scratching his head. What the heck is this question? Despite his complaints, he picked up his controller and made a selection. Whatever. Who cares? I'll just pick something random. After mumbling to himself, Dantalion casually picked an option. But the very next moment, two new choices appeared. I feel thrilled when someone else hits me. I feel thrilled when I hit someone else. This question was even stranger than the previous one. In fact, it seemed completely unrelated to the earlier survey about preferences. What a bizarre question, Dantalion muttered before randomly selecting an answer. But immediately after, his eyes widened in shock as the TV screen bombarded him with an endless series of new survey options. The easier the difficulty, the better. The harder the difficulty, the better. I solve problems with violence. I solve problems with intelligence. I keep other people's secrets. I exploit other people's secrets. Friendship means working together toward a common goal. Friendship means having people who will never betray me. The increasingly negative tone of these choices started to unsettle Dantalion. This is getting creepy, he muttered. But the survey didn't stop. The TV screen kept flashing options and messages nonstop. Annoyed, Dantalion snapped. Enough already. It seemed as though the system recognized his irritation, as the next message displayed on the screen was, "Do you know how this world ends?" The abruptness of the question left Dantalion momentarily speechless. After a brief pause, he clicked his tongue and replied, "Of course I know. I've already finished this game." He selected yes, and another message appeared on the screen. Can you change that ending? For some reason, this question gave Dantalion an eerie feeling. This is starting to get creepy, he admitted, his voice tinged with unease. Then, as if a thought struck him, he suddenly yelled, don't tell me this is some kind of fake message? A scam? Maybe? Are they trying to trick me into giving them money or something?" Shaking his head, he scoffed. "Scammers these days, what a horrible society we live in. Good thing I'm not falling for it." Just as he finished speaking, Dantalion noticed something out of the corner of his eye. A massive cockroach casually strolling across the floor beneath him. And this also scared Dantalion out of his wits. A cockroach," he shouted, quickly stepping aside. Inadvertently, his hand pressed the select button on the electronic controller. Right after that, the TV screen in front of him emitted a dazzling light. The light was so strong that Dantalion had to shield his eyes with his hand, waiting for it to fade. When the light disappeared, Dantalion was no longer in his room. Turning towards Delta, who had just noticed the light was gone, he began to grumble. "What just happened?" he muttered while looking at his hands. Then, with a startled exclamation, he shouted, "What on earth is going on here? These aren't my hands." As soon as Dantalion thought of that, an excruciating pain overwhelmed him. His eyes widened in shock, and his body collapsed forward. At that moment, a voice sounded in front of him. "Hey, Tell us where the treasure is hidden. If you don't talk, we'll make things even worse for you. Dear Demon King. The voice came from a group of individuals who appeared to be adventurers. Delta, on the other hand, was covered in wounds, as if he had been beaten to a pulp by them. The words of the adventurers left Dantalion completely dumbfounded. Treasure? Demon King? Are they talking about me? And where is this place? What exactly is going on here? As he pondered, Dantalion began to observe the unfamiliar surroundings. He tried to recall the events that had happened before he ended up in this place. Let's see. I was playing a game at home, and then, damn it, I can't remember anything. Whatever. Forget that for now. I need to figure out how to deal with this situation first. But from earlier until now, his whole body had been aching. With his leg in such a state, there was no way he could run away. As he thought about this, Dantalion looked at his twisted, broken leg. It seemed the adventurers hadn't held back, probably to prevent the so-called weak Demon King from escaping. They had either broken his leg or come very close to it. The searing pain caused Dantalion to grit his teeth, barely holding back a scream. Damn it, this pain is driving me insane. No, I need to stay calm. Think. Focus. Find a way out of this situation. I need a clue, something I can figure out by talking to them. Determined, Dantalion lifted his head, looked at the group of adventurers, and said, Wait, please, can you stop calling me the Demon King? What are you even talking about? In response, the leader of the adventurers stepped forward, grabbed one of the horns on Dantalion's head, and sneered, Hey, did we hit you so hard you've lost your mind? Look at those fine horns of yours. Trembling with sadness, Demon King Dantalion. Hearing this, Dantalion's eyes widened in shock. In that moment, everything fell into place. Right now I remember. He recalled the role-playing game where heroes embark on adventures to defeat demon kings. The game, Dungeon Defense, was a brutal and challenging experience. Players were tasked with saving the world by defeating an overwhelming number of demon kings, and it was infamous for its extreme difficulty. Dantalion thought back to the game's bleak narrative, where the only ending was the collapse of the entire world. And Dantalion? He wasn't just weak, he was practically trash, ranking 71st out of 72 demon kings. He was the weakest boss, and the first one any player would defeat. Even low-tier adventurers like the ones in front of him could take him down without breaking a sweat. Right, that's it. I just finished Dungeon Defense. And after that, those stupid survey questions popped up on the cursed TV screen. When I accidentally pressed yes on the question, can you change the ending? I ended up here. The realization hit him like a brick wall. There's no doubt about it. I've been transported into the world of Dungeon Defense, and I've become the weakest demon king, Dantalion. But the absurdity of the situation left him incredulous. How is this even possible? Yet, as the pieces fit together, a chilling realization struck him. Wait a minute, if that's the case, then I'm in serious trouble. Finally, Dantalion understood just how dangerous his predicament was. To summarize, a group of adventurers had successfully conquered his dungeon and were on the verge of killing him. His leg was badly injured, leaving him unable to escape. This wasn't just any challenge, it was the legendary Hell difficulty. At that moment, the leader of the adventurers, noticing Dantalion deep in thought, smirked and landed a powerful punch on him. The force of the blow sent Dantalion flying back over a meter, slamming into the ground with a thud. The impact made him cough violently, pain radiating through his battered body. This is it. If this keeps up, I'm going to end up in the afterlife, he thought to himself, panting heavily. But before Dantalion could formulate any kind of plan, the leader chuckled darkly and turned to his underlings. Hey, all of you. Before he even finished his sentence, the group of adventurers burst out laughing, already understanding his intent. Without hesitation, they began advancing toward Dantalion. What followed was a merciless beating. The adventurers showed no restraint as they kicked and punched the already injured Demon King. Each blow felt like a hammer striking his broken body, forcing him to reflect bitterly on his miserable fate. This has to be a joke, he thought. After finally escaping the curse of my dead, wretched father, I thought I could finally live a peaceful life. But now, I'm lying here on the verge of death. Dantalion's breathing grew ragged as his vision started to blur. His thoughts became disjointed, slipping into darkness. As his consciousness faded, hallucinations began to take shape before him. Huh? Who's that? He wondered, his voice weak and distant. Then, the figure became clearer. Wait a second, no. It can't be. That's my bastard of a father. Dantalion's heart filled with rage. Why? Why is he smiling? It's because of him that I've suffered so much. Suddenly, a buried memory resurfaced. This feels familiar. Dantalion realized. Something like this happened before. He remembered a moment from his past when he had been kidnapped by someone with a grudge against his father. It wasn't the first time. By the fourth kidnapping attempt, he had reached his limit. That time, Dantalion made a decision. He remained calm and allowed himself to be captured, betting everything on one risky gamble. I wanted to see if I could use this as an opportunity to finally free myself from that wretched man. At that time, a brown-haired man had pointed a gun directly at Dantalion, threatening him. This isn't a toy. You hear me? If you make a scene, I'll take care of you right here. Just shoot me, Dantalion said coldly, his voice emotionless. He was gambling. If the gun was real, then he would win. If it was fake, he would lose, and his life would remain in his father's hands forever. The icy, detached words of the child made the brown-haired man break into a cold sweat. What? Are you serious? Go ahead. Shoot me, Dantalion repeated, pressing the gun barrel firmly against his own forehead. The result was a little disappointing for Dantalion. The brown-haired man, terrified by Dantalion's calm and cold demeanor, couldn't pull the trigger. In the end, the man surrendered himself to the authorities, and Dantalion lost the gamble. But he learned something important that day. The one with the stronger resolve will be the one who survives in the end. Back to the present. The leader of the adventurers spoke again, his voice dripping with menace. This is your last chance. Where's the treasure? He stepped forward and stomped hard on Dantalion's head. Dantalion, lying on the ground, whispered to himself, "That's right. I already died once that day, which means I can turn this situation around any way I want." The adventurer leader, growing impatient with Dantalion's silence, clicked his tongue in frustration. So, you want to take the treasure with you to the grave? Huh. Well, just so you know, my patience is running thin. He snapped his fingers, signaling one of his underlings to step forward. A bald subordinate, wielding a massive spiked club, approached. Before attacking, the bald man hesitated and asked, "Are you sure about this? We still don't know where the treasure is, and you want me to take him out already?" The leader smirked and replied, "Don't worry about it. We can find the treasure later. For now, just send him off." Turning back to Dantalion, he sneered, "If you regret anything, you can regret it in the afterlife." The bald man, hearing his leader's command, no longer hesitated. He raised the massive spiked club high above his head, preparing to bring it down on Dantalion. But just as he was about to crush him, Dantalion quickly raised his hand and shouted, "All right, stop." The bald man froze mid-swing, lowering the club slightly. Meanwhile, the leader of the adventurers let out a triumphant laugh, his face brimming with smug satisfaction as though he had just gained an unexpected prize. Dantalion, trembling, slowly pushed himself to his feet. Determination flickered in his eyes as he muttered to himself, "I can do this. No matter what it takes, I will survive." Taking a deep, shaky breath, he said aloud, "Fine, I'll tell you where the treasure is." The bald man burst into a loud, mocking laugh. "Huh, so you're finally giving up? Huh." As he laughed, thoughts began swirling in his mind. If we can quickly get the treasure, take this guy's head, and present it to the boss, we'll definitely be showered with praise. Meanwhile, Dantalion's thoughts were in chaos. His earlier words were nothing more than an improvised bluff, a desperate attempt to buy time and preserve his life. The problem is, he thought anxiously, I don't even know if this so-called treasure exists. If I point them in a random direction, they won't hesitate to kill me first. He realized he needed to prolong the situation somehow. Kneeling down on one knee, Dantalion said solemnly, "I've been completely defeated. The treasure is inside the Demon King's throne room." The adventurers leaned in closer, listening intently as he continued. "However, the treasure is sealed with a powerful magic spell. I am the only one who can break that seal. After speaking, Dantalion lifted his head and met their gaze with a serious expression. This was his insurance. If he hadn't mentioned the magic seal, they would have likely killed him on the spot. On the opposite side, the blonde-haired adventurer stepped forward, thrusting his sword into the ground right in front of Dantalion, the blade's tip just inches away. His eyes gleamed with a dangerous intensity as he growled, "All right, but if you're lying to us, I'll kill you immediately." "I understand," Dantalion replied, his voice shaky with fear. The blonde-haired adventurer turned back toward his group, laughing loudly. "You heard that, guys? The treasure's in the Demon King's throne room. This is great. Let's move." His excited demeanor gave Dantalion a moment of relief. He let out a quiet sigh. "All right, I've cleared the first hurdle, but the real battle starts now," Dantalion thought. "They can't kill me immediately anymore. Not until we reach the throne room. I need to come up with a plan before that happens." The blonde adventurer, eager to get his hands on the treasure, barked impatiently. "Hey, Demon King, get moving already." Yes, I'm sorry," Dantalion quickly replied, scrambling to keep up. But his apology only seemed to irritate the adventurer further. "Are you stalling for time? Do you want to die right now?" he shouted. Dantalion bit his tongue and stayed silent. He knew arguing would only provoke the man further, leading to unnecessary pain. Though they couldn't kill him right away, they could certainly make him suffer more. For now, silence was golden. The group began making their way toward the Demon King's throne room. Dantalion, walking among them, silently analyzed the situation. "If this keeps going, it's only a matter of time before they kill me. I need to figure out a way to deal with all of them before that happens. But how? There are 10 of them, all armed." As he racked his brain, his eyes darted left and right, scanning his surroundings in desperation for anything that might be useful. Suddenly, a thought struck him. "Wait a second. This is Dantalion's castle. There should be at least one monster left alive, right?" He began looking around more intently, his eyes filled with hope. However, his movements didn't escape the notice of the blonde adventurer, who turned around and barked, "Hey, stand up straight and keep moving." "Right. Sorry," Dantalion muttered, forcing himself to comply. The adventurer turned back, his expression smug, thinking to himself, "It doesn't matter. We're going to kill him as soon as we get the treasure anyway." Dantalion, meanwhile, was deep in thought. "Why haven't I seen any fresh monster corpses yet? All the ones we've passed so far are old. What's going on here?" Shaking his head, he dismissed the thought. "Forget it. I can't rely on anyone else. I'll have to handle this myself." "How much farther is it to the throne room?" Dantalion wondered, his frustration mounting. "This is insane. If this were really just a game." His thoughts trailed off as he focused on the next step of his survival plan. Dantalion, while lost in thought, began to raise his face and look ahead. But then, right after that, he witnessed something that made his eyes widen in shock. "That's right," he mumbled to himself. "The Eyes of Rost. This is real. This is the world inside the game. So, surely, I can use that." At that moment, in Dantalion's line of sight, a system interface appeared before him. It displayed an image of a castle, along with its internal map. Castle of Dantalion. Level, half star. Type, cave. Special effects, none. Army, none. Population, none. Wealth, unknown. The Eyes of Rost is one of the skills for dungeon defense. As the name suggests, this skill allows you to see your current location, the positions of enemies, items, and traps within the dungeon. It is a high-tier skill that can usually only be used when you've reached the midpoint of the game. However, there is one place where this skill can be used right from the start of the game. That's right, the Crimson Dungeon, the first tutorial area that adventurers enter to learn about the game's mechanics, is none other than Dantalion's castle. Until now, I've always wondered why I became Dantalion, but I never thought it would prove useful in this way. With that, Dantalion began carefully examining the information described by the system interface. Just as I expected, there's not a single soldier here. Then, the system issued a notification that made his eyes widen once again. The current number of troops in the Demon King's castle is 0. This is extremely dangerous. Please hire soldiers immediately. Right after that, Another interface gradually appeared in front of Dantalion, displaying contract with Hades. What type of monster would you like to hire? Slime monster. Strength, F. Attack, F. Defense, E. Cost, for Libra. Lesser fairy monster. Strength, F. Attack, E. Defense, F. Cost, 8 Libra. Goblin warrior monster. Strength, E. Attack, E. Defense, F. Cost, 12 Libra. Small Olam monster. Strength, D. Attack, D. Defense, C. Cost, 20 Libra. Current funds, 100 Libra. Upon seeing the information panel, Dantalion burst into uncontrollable laughter. The Demon King has the skill to hire monsters? It seems like the heavens haven't completely abandoned me yet. He then turned his gaze back to the interface, calculating his current funds, 100 Libra. With just 100, this is going to be tough? Dantalion scratched his head nervously, sweat dripping down his face. Then, unable to contain his frustration, he began cursing the former owner of this body. Dantalion, you damned Demon King. What on earth were you even doing up until now? After venting his anger, he refocused on his pressing issue. They have 10 people, but I can only hire 8 goblins. It'll be hard to defeat them like this. Should I hire an Olam for a surprise attack? No, forget it. Dantalion then studied the dungeon map intently before glancing back at the monster hiring interface. With his limited funds, he realized that engaging them head-on would be nearly impossible. There was no guarantee of victory, and the risk was maddening. They're already nearing the throne room. If I do this, my chances of success are maybe 60%. That's far too low to risk my life. He shook his head, frustrated. But there's no more time to think. I have no other choice. I have to go through with this. With that thought, Dantalion clenched his fist and steeled his resolve. You'd better get ready, he muttered, his gaze sharpening with a dangerous glint. To ensure the best outcome, Dantalion reevaluated his plan one more time. If this is going to work, the first step is to earn their trust. But before that, I need to confirm something. The Apostle of Apple Deity. As soon as Dantalion had this thought, a system interface appeared above all the adventurers' heads, revealing their details. Take the bald one. For example, the system information displayed the following about him. Name, rap, race, human, level, 8, class, F-rank adventurer, leadership, F, strength, E, intelligence, F, political understanding, F, charisma, F, skills, E, current thought. I want to hurry home and eat my mom's stew. After reading the information displayed, Dantalion smirked slyly. The Apostle of Apple Deity, he thought. A skill that lets me see the status of my enemies. Heh, I can see everything now. As he processed this realization, his gaze shifted toward the blonde man, examining his stats. Name, lip, race, human, level, 13, class, F-rank adventurer, leadership, D, strength, D, intelligence, F, political understanding, E, charisma, F, skills, E, current thought. I'll find this treasure, and then I'll get even more riches. Turning toward Lip, Dantalion noticed the man suddenly glancing back at him. Realizing Dantalion was slowing down, Lip barked angrily. Hey, you bastard. Hurry up. Yes. My apologies. Dantalion replied with a polite smile, all while finalizing the plan in his mind. Now, it's time to strike back. The Apostle of Apple Deity is one of the highest tier skills available in the Dungeon Defense game. It allows players to see the stats of others, usually hidden information. Now that I can see everything I need to know, all that's left is to calculate my moves carefully. As Lip saw Dantalion lingering again, he turned around and shouted furiously, Hey, move faster. Didn't you hear me? You idiot. Hurry up. As he yelled, he pointed his sword toward Dantalion. Dantalion, upon hearing this, quickly lowered his head and said, Yes, I'm terribly sorry. At that moment, Dantalion confirmed something crucial in his mind. Just as I thought, the key to victory is to make this guy, who looks like their leader. Trust me, even if it's risky, I'll take down these adventurers. The group resumed their journey, continuing deeper into the dungeon. Not long after, Dantalion's gaze fell on a skeleton, seemingly a victim of one of the dungeon's traps. He thought to himself, all right, first, I need to gain their trust. With this in mind, Dantalion raised his voice and shouted, everyone, please stop here. His words immediately drew the attention of the adventurers. They all turned to look at him, curious and wary about what the Demon King was planning. The makeshift leader, Lip, scowled and barked. What? What do you mean by that? Facing them, Dantalion officially began executing his plan to earn their trust. He pointed ahead and said, my apologies for stopping everyone so abruptly, but there's a trap up ahead. His words startled Lip, who exclaimed, a trap? That's right, Dantalion replied. If you proceed further, invisible arrows will rain down upon you. None of you will get through unscathed. So, I will go ahead and disable the trap? This statement only added to Lip's confusion. What nonsense are you spouting now? He shouted. But before Lip could say more, one of the adventurers pulled out a map and spoke up. Boss, from this point forward, the path does narrow quite a bit. It's also too dark to see clearly ahead. Judging by the layout, this spot really does seem like the perfect place for a trap. If we accidentally trigger something in a confined, dark space like this, we're as good as dead. Hearing this, Lip hesitated, unease flickering across his face. However, he couldn't just let Dantalion go ahead unchecked. Hold it right there. You bastard! Lip shouted, his voice filled with suspicion. I forbid you to run away. The threat made Dantalion, who had already started moving forward, pause. He tilted his head back toward them and said calmly, don't worry. With these legs of mine, I couldn't run even if I wanted to. Besides, this is my way of showing respect. You're nothing like those other adventurers from before. You didn't kill me right away. If you don't trust me, you're free to follow right behind me. But keep in mind, I can't guarantee your safety. As Dantalion spoke, his eyes gleamed with danger. The ominous tone in his voice made Lip break out in a cold sweat. What did you just say? Lip stammered, startled. But almost immediately, he regained his composure and shouted to the others, don't be scared. Follow him. Unfortunately for Lip, his words fell flat. Not a single one of his subordinates stepped forward. Though Lip himself wasn't afraid, his underlings were easily unnerved. One of them, clearly anxious, quickly intervened. Boss, wait a moment. We should think this through first. His suggestion was met with agreement from the others. That's right. If it's like the trap we ran into at the entrance. The man trailed off, but the implication was clear to everyone. If they triggered another trap, they wouldn't stand a chance. His words brought back unpleasant memories for Lip. He recalled their near-disastrous encounter earlier, but, unwilling to lose face, he barked, damn it, are you guys even men? While the group continued arguing, Dantalion smirked triumphantly and began moving forward. As he advanced, his thoughts raced. Have I gone far enough yet? All right, let's hope this works. He glanced down at the 2 arrows he held in his hands. I picked up these arrows from those skeletons earlier and brought them with me on purpose. Now is when things truly begin. Steeling himself, Dantalion gripped the arrows tightly. There's nothing to fear. This is no big deal. With that thought, he suddenly plunged the arrows into his own body. A blood-curdling scream of agony escaped his lips, echoing through the dungeon. The adventurers, still in the midst of their quarrel, froze in shock. The sharp cry silenced their bickering in an instant. It took several seconds for anyone to react, until one of them nervously asked, what was that? Was that the Demon King Dantalion? Even Lip felt a twinge of concern. If something happens to Dantalion, who's going to lead us to the treasure? He thought. His voice boomed with urgency as he shouted, hey, what's going on? Immediately after Lip's shout, Dantalion's voice echoed faintly through the dungeon. Don't come over here. The arrows are still flying. The trap is still active. Hearing this, the underlings glanced nervously at Lip. Boss, what should we do now? One of them asked. Lip's face darkened as he thought for a moment. Then, with a scowl, he barked, damn it, get ready. All of you. If any of you are scared, then I'm scared too. Let's move. His intimidating words forced the group into action. The underlings exchanged uneasy looks, but in the end, they started moving. At least if we die, we won't die alone, one muttered. They lit torches to illuminate the path and cautiously made their way into the dungeon. Not long after entering, Lip shouted, "Dantalion, where are you?" Before he could call out again, one of his subordinates, trembling, pointed ahead and said, "Boss, there's blood." All eyes followed his gesture. Ahead of them, a trail of blood was smeared across the floor, as if someone had been dragged further into the dungeon. Seeing this, Lip grabbed a torch from one of the underlings and hurried forward. The group followed, tense and apprehensive. Soon, they found Dantalion lying motionless on the ground. An arrow was visibly lodged in his thigh. "Dantalion, what happened here?" Lip demanded. Dantalion, upon seeing that they had arrived, began his performance. "Damn it, I blacked out," he groaned, his voice weak. As he spoke, his body trembled as though he were enduring excruciating pain. The sight unnerved the adventurers, who instinctively glanced around to stay alert. Lip, his voice sharp with urgency, questioned him further. "What happened to the trap? Explain. Now." Meeting Lip's anxious gaze, Dantalion spoke softly. "You can rest easy now. The traps, they've all been disabled." Dantalion's fabricated words brought joy to the adventurers. They exchanged relieved glances, their faces lighting up with the realization that they no longer needed to worry about their lives. However, while the underlings seemed happy, Lip's expression turned wary. He found Dantalion's sudden kindness suspicious and began scrutinizing him with a skeptical look. "Huh? You, horned one?" Lip asked. "Why are you helping us?" Faced with Lip's distrust, Dantalion placed a hand over his chest and spoke in a voice full of sincerity. "As I said earlier, you're different from the other adventurers I've encountered. You didn't immediately take my life. Instead, you let me live. That alone is enough to move me. It's all the reason I need." After finishing his heartfelt explanation, Dantalion glanced at the arrow lodged in his thigh. "Oh, this," he said casually. "It's just an arrow. It's no big deal." With that, he grabbed the arrow and yanked it out of his leg with ease, not even flinching as he did so. "Let's keep moving," he said, as if nothing had happened. Dantalion's display of resilience left Lip stunned. "Is this guy serious?" Lip muttered under his breath, his astonishment clear on his face. At that moment, a system notification suddenly appeared in front of Dantalion. Lip's affection toward Dantalion has increased by 5 points. Dantalion's eyes widened in surprise. It went up. And it wasn't just Lip. Immediately afterward, a series of notifications began to sound. Delay's affection toward Dantalion has increased by 15 points. Soda's affection toward Dantalion has increased by 15 points. Blaba's affection toward Dantalion has increased. To Dantalion, the sound of these notifications was like music to his ears. Perfect. This is exactly the effect I was hoping for. Their affection is leaning in my favor now. But his grin faded slightly as another thought crossed his mind. It's still not enough. I need to push it even higher. The stage has only just been set. Let's move on to Act 2. With that, Dantalion's lips curled into a devious smile, his mind already plotting the next move in his grand performance. As the affection of many adventurers toward Dantalion increased, the system issued another notification. Dantalion's charisma has increased. Name: Dantalion. Race: Demon King. Level: BA. Class: Monarch. Rank F. Leadership: C. Strength: F. Intelligence: A. Political understanding: A. Charisma: C. Skills: F. Title: None. Castle of Dantalion. Level: F. Type: Cave. Alias: None. Special effects: None. Army: None. Population: None. Wealth: 100 Libra. Ignoring his inner joy at the system notifications, Dantalion spoke up. "All right, let's keep moving." At the same time, Lip was deep in thought. "If I play my cards right, I might be able to take advantage of him," he mused. With this plan in mind, Lip spoke up. "I don't know what you're planning, Demon King, but with that injury, you're just going to slow us down. It seems we don't have much of a choice, do we?" Turning to his underlings, Lip barked. Hey, someone help His Majesty the Demon King. Following his command, a small, brown-haired man stepped forward. He moved toward Dantalion and said cheerfully, Come on, let me help you up. Dantalion, ever the performer, put on an innocent expression and replied softly, Thank you. This show of camaraderie brought a grin to Lip's face. Why are you so surprised? Your Majesty? Lip said mockingly. You saved us. After all, this is just our way of showing gratitude. Lip turned to his group and shouted, All right, everyone, pull yourselves together and let's keep moving forward. The group's cheerful mood brought a smirk to Dantalion's lips. Heh, excellent. Everything is going perfectly. But Lip is proving to be a tough one to manipulate. As I thought, this isn't enough. I need more. Much more. Yes. From now on, let's begin Act 2. After traversing a labyrinth of twists and turns, the group finally arrived before a massive door. This is it, Dantalion said, stopping in his tracks. We've reached the entrance to the Demon King's castle. The sight of the door made the adventurers, especially Lip, beam with excitement. It looks even more impressive than I imagined. Lip exclaimed, All right, open it up. Right after that, the group of adventurers couldn't hold back any longer. They immediately pushed the door open. Ha ha, finally, we've made it, Lip thought to himself. Then, he turned back and spoke to Dantalion. Now, Your Majesty, tell us where the treasure is. But before Lip could get an answer, Dantalion suddenly started crying. This unexpected reaction left Lip and his underlings confused. They had no idea what was going on. Finally, the brown-haired man supporting Dantalion spoke up. What's wrong? Why are you crying? Dantalion sniffled and replied, I'm sorry. This place reminds me of my old comrades. Actually, it reminds me of my family. With those words, he covered his face with his hands, clearly overwhelmed. But his words made Lip even more curious. What? The Demon King has a family? Of course, Dantalion said. Even someone like me once had people I called family. As he spoke, Dantalion began recalling memories. Memories he was just now piecing together. Back in those days, we all lived happily together in this palace. Until one day, a group of soldiers suddenly appeared and destroyed everything. After dealing with the grunts, I was forced to flee for my life. They chased me relentlessly. There he is. Shoot him, the captain ordered. One by one, the soldiers raised their bows, aiming directly at me. Arrows flew toward me in waves. And just as I was about to be riddled with arrows, a large figure stepped forward and shielded me. Lord Dantalion, are you all right? The towering figure said, hearing that familiar voice. I couldn't hold back my tears. I'm fine, I managed to reply. Relieved, the giant figure, Horus, urged me. You must go. Leave this place to me. Run as fast as you can. What are you saying? No. If I'm escaping, you're coming with me. I cried, tears streaming down my face. But before I could protest further, the sound of arrows piercing flesh echoed in the air. At the same time, Horus' trembling voice echoed once more. Lord Dantalion, you don't have to worry about me. Please, run. Quickly. Dantalion. Hearing this, Dantalion clenched his teeth to suppress his sobs. Under the encouraging gaze of the green-skinned warrior, he finally turned and began to leave. They all sacrificed their lives to protect me, Dantalion muttered, his voice trembling with emotion. A somber atmosphere suddenly enveloped the group. The excitement of nearing the treasure seemed to fade, replaced by a quiet sorrow. Someone in the group broke the silence. My condolences. Meanwhile, the brown-haired man supporting Dantalion sighed. I always thought the Demon King would be a terrifying figure, but here he is, grieving for his fallen comrades. To me, Dantalion doesn't seem like a bad person at all. As he spoke, he glanced at Dantalion, who was crying as if his world had been set aflame. At the same time, a series of system notifications echoed. The adventurer's favorability towards Dantalion has increased by 20 points. The other adventurers, moved by Dantalion's story, also found their affection for him growing rapidly. Only Lip, the cold-hearted one, remained unmoved. Instead, Lip's thoughts churned in confusion. What's going on here? This is completely different from what I was told. According to her, the Demon King is supposed to be the lowest scum, someone who neither sheds tears nor bleeds. But whatever. Who cares? The only thing that matters is whether he's useful to me. Lip turned his gaze back to Dantalion, who, after finishing his tearful display, finally spoke. Everyone, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for bringing me back to this castle. I was right. You are nothing like those who murdered my family. If it's you, perhaps the ones who died might forgive you. Now, the treasure of the Demon King's castle, and even my life, are yours. With that, Dantalion led the group to the throne room. It wasn't long before Dantalion's voice echoed again. Everyone, we've arrived. The small-time leader, Lip, grinned so widely after hearing Dantalion's words that his smile practically stretched to his ears. He was clearly on top of the world. Turning to Dantalion, who had now led the group into the throne room, the demon addressed them. As promised, I will now present you with the treasure of the Demon King's castle. Hearing this, Lip chuckled and said, Haha, so, where's the treasure? As I mentioned earlier, Dantalion replied, the treasure is sealed by magic. I will now dispel the spell. Everyone, step back. Dantalion gestured for the group to retreat. Lip, hearing this, quickly commanded his subordinates to move back. Once they had retreated a fair distance, he asked, is this far enough? Yes, that's fine. Dantalion replied. Watching everything unfold as planned, Dantalion felt a surge of satisfaction. Haha, everything is going perfectly. Just a little more, and my plan will succeed. Now, it's time to bid you farewell, he thought to himself. As he said this, Dantalion opened a system interface in front of him. After glancing at his status screen, Dantalion already knew the truth. There was no real treasure in this castle. The only thing left behind was 100 Libra, stored here by Dantalion, before his reincarnation. Still, as long as that was enough to fool them, it would be perfect. Much like the mechanics of dungeon defense games, each Libra corresponded to 15 silver coins. The system was designed so that items and money would appear wherever he placed them. He would use this to his advantage. Just a little trickery to make everything work. At that moment, a system notification appeared in front of Dantalion. Are you sure you want to withdraw 76 Libra? Seeing the prompt, Dantalion smirked. He raised his hand high into the air and shouted, I am the 71st Demon King, the ruler of these lands, Dantalion. Oh, brave adventurers. In the name of Demon King Dantalion, I will bestow upon you my treasure. As soon as he finished speaking, the adventurers eagerly watched with anticipation. Suddenly, from the sky above, countless silver coins began to fall, raining down on the ground below. The sight was so ridiculous that the group couldn't help but burst into uncontrollable laughter. No way. Ha ha. This must be a dream. Ha ha ha. And so, a rain of silver coins continued to fall, bringing joy to everyone present. We did it. It's all ours. One adventurer exclaimed in delight. The group scrambled to gather the coins littering the ground. Even Lip picked up a silver coin, smiling with satisfaction. Finally, I got it, he thought to himself, unable to suppress his laughter. Soon after, the system displayed a notification. Lip's favorability towards Dantalion has increased by 50 points. After laughing heartily for a while, Lip shouted to the others, Hey, we'll split the treasure equally. Got it? Hurry up and pick it all up. Then, he turned to Dantalion with a sly grin. Haha, we can definitely use this Demon King for a while longer. Getting rid of him now would be such a waste. While the group was happily collecting the coins, Dantalion's voice suddenly echoed through the room. Everyone, may I say a few words? Lip, still grinning, shouted back. What is it this time? Do you still have more treasure? Hold on, we're all busy right now. However, his joy would last only about 3 seconds, because right after that, Dantalion's voice turned cold. Apologies for the inconvenience, but I must tell you something important right now. Approximately 30 new adventurers have just entered the dungeon. These words sent a wave of dread through the group. The adventurers' faces went pale, and the cheerful atmosphere vanished instantly. Dantalion, capitalizing on his acting skills, continued in a grave tone. I used magic to monitor who comes in and out of the dungeon. But I didn't anticipate this. His definitive statement was like a bucket of ice water, dousing the adventurers' earlier joy. No way, they stammered, their voices trembling with disbelief. Even Lip, usually composed, was visibly shaken. What's he saying? 30 people? That's way too many. We can't possibly handle that. Panicked, Lip turned to Dantalion and asked, Hey, is there a way to escape the castle? Dantalion sighed, his tone helpless. There isn't. There's only one entrance and exit. The grim news quickly threw the group into chaos. But what if they attack this place? With 30 people, they'll sweep through here in less than a minute. What do we do now? The adventurers began murmuring and debating amongst themselves, their panic growing. Even Lip seemed helpless, unsure of what action to take. As he stood frozen in place, Dantalion stepped forward and addressed him. Captain, I have an idea. If we can't avoid them, then we'll have to face them head-on. Lip frowned, puzzled. What do you mean? Do you have a map? Dantalion asked. Yes, Lip replied, hurriedly pulling out his map. Dantalion continued. Unfortunately, I don't have enough energy to pinpoint the exact location of the intruders. However, I can act as bait. Based on their numbers, they're likely a military unit. That means they can probably sense magic. If that's the case, they'll detect my magic and come this way. From here, there are 3 paths leading to the exit. You and the others should take a different route than me and make a straight run for the outside. This statement left Lip stunned. He's volunteering to sacrifice himself again? But then a thought struck Lip, and he asked sharply, You're not planning to escape, are you? Don't tell me these so-called intruders are just a trick. Hearing this, Dantalion quickly waved his hands in denial. Of course not. How could I deceive you like that? I'm just sincerely trying to help. His tone and expression were so convincing that even the most seasoned tricksters would have applauded. However, Dantalion knew that mere words wouldn't be enough to fool Lip completely. He needed to give him something tangible to ensure his trust. But time was short. I don't have the luxury to fully convince you, Dantalion said, moving closer to Lip. Then, leaning in, he whispered something into Lip's ear. No one knew what exactly he said, but whatever it was, it made Lip's face light up with a grin, as if he had just struck gold. All right, fine. I'll go along with your strategy, Lip said, but don't tell the others about this bait plan. It'll only make them angry. After saying this, Lip turned to the bickering adventurers and shouted, Hey, all of you, shut up, hurry up, grab the rest of the treasure, and gather here. He yelled at his teammates, completely unaware that Dantalion, standing behind him, was watching him with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Thank you, Captain Lip. I knew you wouldn't trust me, Dantalion thought, smirking to himself. Once Lip saw that the group had collected every last bit of the treasure, he began explaining the plan. Listen up, everyone. We're going to split into 2 groups and head for the exit. His words confused the others. If we split up like this, what if we run into those 30 intruders? We'll all get wiped out. Some of them voiced their doubts. Boss, are you serious about this? Yeah, I don't get what you're saying at all. Hearing their complaints, Lip yelled back, Shut up and listen to me. Look at this map. There are 3 paths leading to the exit from here. The invaders will be cautious, just like us, so they'll probably stick to one path. With about 30 people, they're essentially a small army. At our level, we have no chance of defeating them. So why don't we seize this chance to survive? As he spoke, Lip's face twisted into a crazed grin. This unsettling expression, combined with his words, only made the others more nervous. Noticing their anxiety, Lip tried to reassure them. Calm down. There's a 100% chance that at least one of us will make it out alive. And if we're lucky, none of us will die at all. He added with a sly grin. For now, I'll hold on to all the treasure. Unsurprisingly, this suggestion didn't sit well with the group. What? What do you mean by that? They shouted. Lip had anticipated their reaction. In a calmer tone, he explained, Relax. I don't plan on keeping it all. One group will go with the Demon King. Consider this a blessing in disguise. If that group survives, you'll be able to claim the bounty on his head. and instantly become heroes. Although Lip's words seemed reasonable, the group remained deeply worried. Noticing this, Lip continued to reassure them. Listen here. Out there, things are way worse than dealing with this mess. Show me some courage, will you? Or do you want to die like pitiful dogs? What about your families back in the village? You're not a bunch of weak cowards, are you? Am I wrong? Then listen carefully. I want most of you here, no, all of you, to survive. With just a few provocative words, Lip managed to banish the fear from their hearts. After splitting the group into two, he smiled inwardly, mocking the others in his mind. Fools, they actually bought into my flowery words. There was a moment I thought this might fail, but it worked perfectly. Thinking about this, Lip recalled what Dantalion had told him earlier. I hope you don't plan on running away at this point. Of course not, but I don't have enough time to convince you to trust me, Dantalion had said. Why not let a few people accompany me to keep an eye on me? That way, they can see whether I'm trying to escape or not. And you should come up with some excuse to hold on to all the treasure yourself. This way, you'll have all the advantages. If what I say is true, then a few of them will sacrifice themselves with me. When it's time to divide the treasure, you'll end up with a bigger share. And even if I'm lying, I wouldn't be able to escape anyway. No matter what, you'll come out ahead. These words replayed in Lip's mind, making him chuckle even in hindsight. That's right. As long as I'm the one benefiting the most in the end, nothing else matters. Haha. Meanwhile, in a separate corridor, Dantalion had his own thoughts. He must be thinking exactly that. What an idiot. Glancing at the map, Dantalion confirmed that the two groups had already split far apart from each other. He murmured to himself, well then, it's time to act. One by one, I'll deal with every single one of them. No one knew what Dantalion had done, but suddenly, a violent tremor erupted within the dungeon. The adventurers, now caught off guard, began to panic. What's going on? Why is everything shaking so much? Is this an attack by the intruders? One of the adventurers suddenly noticed the ground and shouted, What the? The ground is glowing. His words drew the attention of the others. Following his gaze, they all saw a magical circle glowing brightly ahead of them. The tremors and the glowing magic circle caught the attention of Jack, who was supporting Dantalion. Your Majesty, Demon King, what the hell is this? What's happening here? He asked nervously. But before Jack could say another word, Dantalion swiftly covered his mouth and whispered, You'd better stay silent, unless you want to experience a great deal of pain. Then, with a sly grin, Dantalion pulled out a dagger and added, Thank you. I owe you one. Moments later, Jack, moved by the fabricated story Dantalion had spun earlier, became the first to fall victim to him. Meanwhile, the rest of the adventurers remained fixated on the glowing magic circle ahead, completely unaware that one of their own had just been silently dealt with by Dantalion. As for the magic circle in front of them, its reactions grew more intense. The circle began generating a powerful pull, sucking in nearby rocks and debris toward its center. And then, to the shock and terror of the adventurers, a massive golem suddenly emerged from the magic circle. What is that thing? Someone screamed. Before the group could recover from their astonishment, the golem raised a massive fist and slammed it into the ceiling. The impact sent chunks of earth and stone raining down, triggering panic among the adventurers. The leader of the group shouted, Run! But as soon as he gave the command, huge pieces of debris began collapsing from the ceiling. The falling rubble caused a small explosion, filling the area with dust and chaos. When the dust finally settled, the leader's face was pale with sweat. Looking around, he spotted one of his teammates crushed under a giant boulder, their body flattened with only one arm sticking out from the wreckage. Before the leader could even mourn his fallen comrade, another scream pierced the air ahead of him. Startled, he quickly looked up, only to see another teammate caught in the iron grip of the golem's massive hand. To his credit, the leader was undeniably brave. Despite witnessing his comrade's plight, he gripped his sword tightly and charged forward. Damn it, let him go, he shouted, trying to muster every ounce of courage. With a fierce swing, he slashed his sword at the golem's body. But to his dismay, the cheap blade shattered upon impact, breaking into two useless pieces. The sight of his weapon failing him left the leader in disbelief. "No way," he muttered in shock. The golem, unbothered, crushed the trapped adventurer in its hand, reducing him to nothing but lifeless remains. Then, without hesitation, the monster swung its massive fist toward the leader. Seeing the enormous punch heading straight for him, the brown-haired leader felt a surge of despair. "Damn it all," were the last words he could mutter, before the golem's stone fist slammed into him, ending his life in mere moments. In just a matter of seconds, the only one left standing was the ponytailed adventurer. He stood frozen, staring at the horrifying scene before him. The comrades who had fought by his side through countless life-and-death battles were now reduced to mere bloodstains on the ground. Terror gripped him, leaving him speechless. At that moment, the sound of footsteps echoed behind him. Hearing this, the ponytailed adventurer turned quickly, his voice trembling as he cried out, "What's going on? Demon King? We have to run. Hurry." But before he could finish his plea, his eyes widened in shock. He stammered, "Why?" Confusion filled his heart as Dantalion's sword pierced straight through his chest. The Demon King smiled at the adventurer's question and replied coldly, "You ask why? Isn't it obvious? After all, I am the Demon King." Meanwhile, in another corridor, Lip's group also felt the tremors. What's with the earthquake? Could it be that the intruders have already started fighting? If so, then the Demon King's words were true. Thinking this, Lip couldn't help but smile to himself. So, that Demon King is actually this considerate? Impressive. Haha. But just as his laughter reached its peak, it abruptly stopped. Dantalion, the Demon King, suddenly appeared before the group. His unexpected arrival caused Lip's face to darken. Gritting his teeth, Lip growled, "Why are you here, Demon King Dantalion?" It was clear that this situation was outside of his expectations. According to the plan, Dantalion should either be dead by now or still with the others. Desperately searching for an explanation, Lip forced a laugh and said, "Haha, I see. It looks like you haven't run into the intruders yet. So, where are the others who were with you?" Across from him, Dantalion quietly unsheathed his blood-stained sword and said coldly, "Lip, all the people you sent to watch over me, they're all dead." His tone was chilling, and the cold, detached expression on his face was a stark contrast to the fearful, timid demeanor he'd shown earlier. Hearing this, Lip's fury began to boil over. "So, it's just you standing here to face me? This isn't funny. Stop joking around." Dantalion almost laughed at this. "You should have realized it by now. Or are you just refusing to accept the truth?" His expression turned mocking as he continued, "Exactly as you suspect. I personally took care of all of them." Lip's face twisted in rage as he shouted, "What did you say? Say that again." Dantalion sneered. "They were truly a bunch of fools. You should have seen their faces when I ended them." He chuckled darkly as he spoke, taunting Lip further. Hearing Dantalion's tone, Lip's veins bulged on his forehead. Gritting his teeth, he growled, "You bastard! So you've been lying to me from the start?" As Lip's anger peaked, a series of system notifications echoed. Lip's favorability towards Dantalion has dropped to 0. These notifications only serve to please Dantalion further. "That's right," he thought with a smirk. "Keep getting angrier." To further fuel Lip's anger, Dantalion began taunting him. "Lucky for me, you're even dumber than they were. I'm truly grateful for that. Did you really think a demon king like me would ever side with you? Haha." As he finished speaking, Dantalion let out a maniacal laugh, as though he'd completely lost his mind. These words sent Lip into a rage so intense, it felt like he might explode. Grinding his teeth, he roared at Dantalion, "You bastard! Kill him!" Following his command, the other adventurers immediately drew their weapons and charged at Dantalion, ready to tear him apart. But as the furious adventurers closed in, Dantalion remained unervingly calm. Unbeknownst to them, behind Dantalion, the golem from earlier had reappeared. The adventurers, blind with rage, charged at Dantalion like rabid dogs, completely unaware of the real danger lurking nearby. The moment they entered the golem's attack range, it unleashed a devastating punch. its massive fist crashing forward with incredible force. One black-haired swordsman barely had time to process what was happening. Before he could react, he turned to see the adventurer beside him reduced to nothing but a blood-soaked arm. Horrified, he instinctively glanced in another direction, only to witness another teammate being smashed into the wall by the golem's powerful blow. The golem then turned its menacing gaze toward him, its glowing eyes radiating danger. Before he could even move, the golem swung again, this time with a bone-shattering punch. Paralyzed by fear, the black-haired adventurer froze in place. The attack hit its mark, and he joined his comrades, leaving nothing behind, not even a body. Meanwhile, a bald adventurer wielding a hammer quickly circled behind the golem, leaping into the air. He brought his hammer down with all his strength, delivering a thunderous strike to the golem's body. The sheer force of the blow shattered the golem, its massive frame crumbling into pieces. Seeing the monster destroyed by his own hands, the bald man turned to Lip with a triumphant grin and shouted, "Boss, I did it. We got it." But before the bald adventurer could celebrate for even 3 seconds, Dantalion swiftly struck from behind, driving his sword into the man's back. With that, every single one of Lip's subordinates was dead. Dantalion exhaled a long breath, finally able to relax. "Well, this time it's thanks to you, Lip. I'm truly grateful," he said with a sly smile. Hearing this, Lip's eyes widened in disbelief. "What?" he shouted in shock. Following his gaze, Lip saw something that made his heart sink. The golem he had thought was destroyed was now slowly restoring itself, its body reforming as if it had never been damaged. Dantalion noticed the confusion and panic on Lip's face and decided to enlighten him. You can easily destroy a golem by shattering the core in its chest. With the right knowledge and teamwork, even an average adventurer could take one down. In other words, if you and your men had stayed calm and worked together, instead of letting yourselves be provoked, you might have actually stood a chance. But now, the situation has changed. Dantalion's grin widened, his face alight with excitement from his victory. The sight of his triumphant expression made Lip's stomach churn with dread. Damn it, this lunatic. He's nothing like the timid fool from before. This is the real Demon King Dantalion. He's insane. Despite his growing terror, Lip tried to steady himself. "No, I can't end it here. I've survived worse situations than this before. I'll make it through this, no matter what tricks he tries to pull." Sweat poured down Lip's face like a stream, but he forced himself to take a deep breath, regaining his composure. Adjusting his expression to mask his fear, he looked straight at Dantalion and said, well, Your Majesty, impressive, truly, but I've lost. I surrender. Just kill me already." As he spoke, Lip threw his sword to the ground and knelt before Dantalion. From across the room, Dantalion raised an eyebrow, amused by the sudden display of submission. Taking his sword, he replied, "Very well, I understand." He began walking slowly toward Lip, sword in hand. Seeing this, Lip's heart leaped with joy. "Idiot," he thought. "Come closer. Let's see who's really going to die here. You'll regret underestimating me, Demon King." As Lip thought this, he quietly hid a dagger behind his back. "Yes, come closer, just a little closer. And when you're close enough, I'll deal with you using the dagger I'm hiding. 3 steps, 2 steps. I'll kill you for sure." Lip's heart raced with excitement, but just as he was about to celebrate his plan, Dantalion suddenly stopped in his tracks. This abrupt halt extinguished Lip's joy in an instant. What? Why did he stop? Ahead, Dantalion began to speak. "Lip, I can see right through you. I know exactly what you're planning." Lip froze, his blood running cold. Through Dantalion's eyes, Lip's thoughts were displayed clearly on a system status screen. "Come closer. When you're close enough, I'll kill you with the dagger I'm hiding. 3 steps, 2 steps. I'll definitely kill you." Seeing these thoughts laid bare, Dantalion erupted into a fit of maniacal laughter. "Haha, this is it for you, my friend. You're done for this time." For some reason, the term "my friend" made Lip snap. "My friend? How dare you mock me like that? You must be joking. This isn't over yet. The one who'll win will be me." Lip roared as he leaped forward, charging straight at Dantalion. But before he could reach him, Lip tripped and fell flat on his face. Confused, he looked back, only to realize that something had wrapped around his leg. To his disbelief, a slimy creature, a slime, was clinging tightly to his foot. Realizing this, Lip screamed in frustration. A slime? Damn it! Why? Before anyone could answer his question, the sound of Dantalion's footsteps grew closer. Beads of sweat poured down Lip's face like a torrential rainstorm. Damn you! He yelled, scrambling to his feet. Gripping his sword tightly, he swung it wildly toward Dantalion. But before Lip could complete his attack, his arm was suddenly grabbed by the golem. With just a slight squeeze, the sound of bones shattering echoed through the air. Lip screamed in agony. My arm! My arm! Turning to Dantalion, Lip saw him calmly observing the system interface. Dantalion smirked. Everything is going exactly as I planned. Good thing I had enough money to summon that slime. I can't believe how smoothly this is going. Haha. Looking directly at Lip, Dantalion began to taunt him. How does it feel? How does it feel to have your pride crushed completely by someone you thought was weaker than you? To lose everything and die like this? How does that feel? As Dantalion spoke, he gripped his sword tightly, his expression cold and merciless. Lip's face turned pale as despair consumed him. Where did I go wrong? It was supposed to be simple. Just kill the Demon King Dantalion. No. Was it when I accepted the map from that woman? No, it was earlier than that. It was when I first dared to challenge the Demon King himself. I should never have opposed him. He truly is the Demon King. Scene change. In a hazy, white void, Dantalion found himself surrounded by thick mist. What is this? Where am I? What's going on? As he muttered these questions, a shadowy figure appeared before him. It was the figure of his father. Son, prepare yourself. No matter what choices you make from now on, your life will be crippled without me. Seeing this figure, Dantalion's expression darkened. He raised his hand and swiped through the illusion, causing it to dissipate. Is it you again? What do you want? Go to hell already. Shut up. Disappear. Leave me alone. Suddenly, another voice cut through his rage, pulling him back to reality. Your Majesty, Demon King Dantalion, are you awake? The voice belonged to a beautiful, pink-haired woman. Startled, Dantalion opened his eyes wide and asked, What are you doing here? The pink-haired woman remained calm and replied, My apologies. You seem to be unwell. But let's get straight to the point. Demon King, the 100 Libra in gold that I loaned you 2 months ago, plus the 96 Libra in interest, comes to a total of 196 Libra. I hope you have the money to repay it today. As she spoke, the pink-haired woman pulled out a contract. Hearing her words, Dantalion's mind went completely blank. What the hell is going on with this woman? Still confused, Dantalion slowly began to recall everything. 3 weeks ago, I became Dantalion, a low-ranked Demon King, 71st out of 72 Demon Kings. In the game I had just recently beaten. Then suddenly, a group of adventurers appeared, intent on killing me. Using my wit and a healthy dose of recklessness, I managed to deal with all of them. At that time, right after Dantalion defeated Lip, the system displayed a notification. You have completed the tutorial training. The level of Demon King Dantalion has increased. Dantalion's level rose from 3 to 4. The sudden notification made him pause. What's this? Completed the tutorial? But before Dantalion could process it, the system presented another message. Tutorial reward. Choose one S-level skill. Skill level 1. Trial version expires. For permanent access to max-level S-tier skills, additional training is required. A list of available skills appeared before him. S-level skills available. The Eye of the Thunder God, the Arm of the Sea God, Death God's Pact, Hera's Ears, Kano's Legacy, the Legs of Prometheus, Apostle of Aphrodite, Apostle of Apollo, Apostle of Athena, Apostle of Hermes, Apostle of Ares. Seeing this, Dantalion couldn't help but feel a pang of frustration. So the tutorial is over, and I can't use the trial skills anymore. Now I can choose one, but they're all only level 1. Wait, does this mean that everything truly starts from now? Damn it. even if I don't want to think about it. This means I'm stuck as Dantalion from now on. This is insane. I don't know how to return to the real world. So there's no choice but to keep moving forward. All right, I have to choose a skill. The one that suits me the most is this one. As Dantalion spoke, he glanced at the system interface and made his decision. He chose the S-level skill, Apostle of Aphrodite. This skill allowed him to see the thoughts and opinions of others, essentially functioning like a mind-reading ability. However, in reality, it was an incredibly versatile and useful skill. All right, I'll pick this one. After completing the selection, an overwhelming exhaustion suddenly washed over him. I'm so tired. It feels like I've been awake for an entire day. Turning to the golem, he said, "Let me borrow your body for a bit. I'm going to sleep now." And with that, Dantalion drifted off into slumber. The next thing he knew, he woke up lying on a bed. Looking around, he guessed that this must be Dantalion's room. The golem must have brought me here, he thought. At first, I thought all of this was just a dream. But now, I'm still Dantalion. I don't remember much else. So this is my life now as a demon king? Contrary to his earlier fears, the real disaster was only just beginning. A few days later, a cold, piercing gaze suddenly appeared before him. The owner of that gaze introduced herself. "My name is Levi La July. I'm here to collect a debt." Back to the present. Dantalion was now slumped in a chair, looking utterly defeated. "As I've told you countless times, I'm not the one who borrowed the money," he said, exasperated. Levi, however, remained composed and replied coldly, "Apologies for being blunt, but I don't understand what you're saying. 2 months ago, you clearly borrowed money from our financial office. We even have a promissory note as proof." As she spoke, Levi pulled out the debt contract once again and presented it to Dantalion for the nth time. Looking at the document, Dantalion couldn't come up with any counterarguments. All he could do was silently curse the original Dantalion in his mind. This is a disaster. What do I do now? I've been arguing with her for a whole week. First, there were those mercenaries. And now this debt. This world is the worst. Why do I have to clean up the mess of this idiot Dantalion? Details of Dantalion's debt contract. Amount borrowed, 100 Libra. Interest rate, 40%. Borrower, Demon King Dantalion, the 71st Demon King. Lender, the financial office. Interest payment, due on the 10th of every month. Principal payment deadline, April 11th, 1505. Clause, if the interest is not paid, the financial office reserves the right to demand the full amount immediately. Penalty clause, the debtor cannot resist or refuse repayment upon violating the terms. Date of issue, February 1st, 1505. Signatories, Demon King Dantalion, 71st rank. The financial office, Levi La July. Witnessed by Handmaid God and Hades. After reading through the outrageous contract again, Dantalion still couldn't believe his eyes. What kind of idiots work at this financial office? Why would they loan money to someone as dumb as that guy? He's got nothing left. How do they expect to ever get their money back? But as this thought crossed his mind, Dantalion's eyes widened, as if struck by an idea. To confirm his suspicions, he turned to Levi and asked, "Excuse me, can I ask you a few questions?" Levi was slightly taken aback by this sudden question, but she replied calmly, "Yes, of course." Dantalion began, "If I'm unable to repay the debt, what happens next?" Levi answered coldly, "Well, in that case, you will first need to declare bankruptcy." Hearing this, Dantalion continued, "Oh, and what happens if I declare bankruptcy?" "In that case," Levi explained, "the financial office will seize your castle as collateral. After that, we'll require you to perform a series of tasks. You don't need to worry about the details. You just need to listen and obey." Her tone was icy and detached, but it confirmed what Dantalion suspected. He exhaled softly, as if his thoughts had fallen perfectly into place. "I see. One last question. What is today's date?" This seemingly unrelated question caught Levi off guard. I don't understand. Demon King, why do you ask?" Before she could finish, Dantalion's cold voice interrupted. "I asked you, what is today's date?" The sudden shift in his tone, sharp and commanding, reminded Levi that, despite his failures, Dantalion was still a true demon king. His authority and presence were undeniable. Realizing this, Levi quickly corrected herself. My apologies. Demon King. Today is April 17th, 1505. Turning back to Dantalion. After hearing the date from Levi, he quickly did the math. If the time is correct, then I'm already 6 days past the repayment deadline. If the interest keeps accumulating at this rate, I'll go bankrupt for sure. I need to figure out a way to handle this. With that thought in mind, Dantalion formed a plan. He turned to Levi and proposed. I see. I understand now. Levi, I have a suggestion. I want you to lend me an additional 10.000 Libra. What do you say? Dantalion spoke confidently, though it was unclear where that confidence came from. Still breathing. Still scheming. He muttered under his breath, half joking to himself. 3 days later, April 20th, 1505. At the headquarters of the Kinsuka Company, a frantic goblin was sprinting down the hallways. While running, he struggled to handle a mountain of paperwork in his arms. Move. Out of the way. I'm going insane here. Too much work. This frantic figure was Tokyo, a green-skinned goblin nicknamed Goerlin the Miser. He was currently an employee at the Kinsuka Company headquarters, though it wasn't clear if the company was just an oppressive, exploitative firm. Judging by Tokyo's current state, it certainly looked that way. Tokyo appeared to be juggling 100 tasks at once. After scribbling on one of the documents in his hands, he quickly handed it over to a tiny fairy next to him and said, "All right, this document needs to be delivered to Simon by 8 o'clock sharp." Understood. The fairy replied swiftly before hurrying off. Tokyo immediately turned to another issue. What about the situation at Batavia Port? All is well, sir. The fairy replied. Good. Make sure everything stays on schedule. Yes, sir. With this hasty exchange completed, Tokyo pulled out his pocket watch to check the time. Oh no, I'm running late. Panting, he muttered to himself. Why the sudden, urgent summons for all the executives? What on earth is going on? Still muttering, he hurriedly made his way toward the meeting room. Not long after, as soon as Tokyo opened the door to the meeting room, he quickly addressed those inside. Apologies for keeping you waiting. From Tokyo's perspective, it seemed like everyone had already gathered. At the head of the table sat an elderly man with white hair. Seeing Tokyo arrive, the man spoke sharply. Tokyo, you're late. For us, time is money. Sit down quickly. We've already wasted too much time. Let's begin the meeting. Kinsuka headquarters. This was the residence of Manboss, the 5th-ranked Demon King, and Simon, the 9th-ranked Demon King, along with their attendants. It was the largest corporation in the demon realm, and the one responsible for overseeing this organization was Evilot Rock, one of the 3 ancient vampires. Back to the meeting. After confirming that everyone was present, Evilot addressed the room. The reason I've summoned you all here today. Levi La July. Proceed. At his command, Levi, who had been standing beside him, stepped forward and said, Yes, sir. However, her presence at the meeting immediately stirred up a commotion among the attendees. What? Her? She's a half-blood between a shark U-boot and a human. What's she even doing here? Isn't her bloodline cursed? Why is someone like her allowed in this room? The room erupted into a chaotic flurry of voices, each attendee louder than the last. This unruly scene irritated Evilot, who slammed his hand on the table and roared. Silence! His voice reverberated through the room, bringing the chatter to an abrupt halt. Once calm was restored, he turned back to Levi and said, Continue. Levi nodded and resumed. Yes, sir. The 71st-ranked Demon King, Dantalion, has requested an additional loan. Her words caused Tokyo, who was seated among the attendees, to clench his teeth in frustration. What? We were gathered here just to discuss something like this? Angry, he slammed his fist on the table and shouted, Are you joking with us? Then, turning to Evilot, he added, Sir, what is the meaning of this? Eva, upon hearing Tokyo's outburst, didn't get angry. Instead, he said gently, Calm down. Tokyo. He then turned to Levi and asked, "Now, tell me, how much is he requesting?" "Yes, sir," Levi replied coldly. "He's asking for 10,000 Libra." Her words caused the entire room to fall into stunned silence. Every person in the meeting stared in disbelief, their mouths agape. Even Tokyo began sweating nervously, thinking to himself, "Did she just say 10,000 Libra? That's enough money to build a small country." Unable to stay quiet, Tokyo shot up from his chair and spoke again. "This is completely insane. Is he really asking for such an enormous amount of money?" The murmurs and confusion weren't limited to Tokyo. Even Levi herself, who had delivered the information, still struggled to believe what she'd heard 3 days earlier. 3 days ago, when Dantalion first made his second loan request, Levi had been completely caught off guard. "Excuse me, sir," she stammered. "What did you just say?" Dantalion smiled at her, his tone calm and confident. "Did you not hear me clearly? I said I want to borrow 10,000 Libra." Levi, after hearing this again, finally confirmed that she hadn't misheard. But that realization only deepened her confusion. "What do you mean by that?" she asked. "You're already in debt for 196 Libra. How can you even think of borrowing more?" Levi tried to explain the absurdity of the situation, but it seemed as though Dantalion deliberately ignored her logic. "Exactly," he replied. "I want to borrow even more." Faced with his outrageous demand, Levi couldn't help but ask, "Sir, I don't understand what you're trying to say." Hearing this, Dantalion chuckled lightly and said, "Haha, let me be honest with you. Why did you lend me money the first time? I, Demon King Dantalion, am useless in this world. Isn't that right?" "No," Levi responded coldly. "I don't think so." "Haha, it doesn't matter. I don't think I'll ever repay my previous debt anyway. You lent me money because you wanted me to fail, didn't you? You wanted me to go bankrupt so you could turn me into a pawn for your company. That was your plan all along, wasn't it?" As Dantalion spoke, he stood and walked toward Levi. His gaze was cold and unyielding, a look that made Levi feel a flicker of unease. "And no, that's not it at all," she quickly stammered. Dantalion, hearing her denial, continued, "Then let me ask you something. You came here under your company's orders to lend me money and get close to me, didn't you?" "No, I came here of my own accord," Levi replied, her expression impassive. Her calm demeanor caught Dantalion's attention. This woman is lying without even batting an eye. How interesting, he thought, his lips curling into a faint smile. "Is that so?" he said lightly. "Then let's get to the main point. Why should you lend me money? Wouldn't the price I pay be spending my entire life serving you and your company? Think about it. Give me the loan, and your goal will be achieved. You'll have a demon king under your thumb, working as your company's dog for life. That sounds like a pretty sweet deal, doesn't it? You'd probably even get promoted." Dantalion leaned in slightly, lifting her chin gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. "So, what do you say? Will you lend me the money?" Before Dantalion could relish the moment further, Levi grabbed his hand firmly, pulled it away, and said curtly, "Understood." Back in the meeting room, Tokyo was furiously objecting to the idea of granting Dantalion the loan. "It's absolutely absurd. He's asking for 10,000 Libra when he can't even pay back 100 Libra. There's no doubt in my mind he's scheming some kind of fraud." His argument earned a nod of agreement from Eva. "You're right. The likelihood of that is quite high. Go on." "Levi." "Yes, sir," Levi replied, stepping forward. She recalled the instructions Dantalion had given her earlier. "If they question you, here's what you'll say. Dantalion has lost his mind. He claims that a plague will soon strike this region, and he insists that he can create a cure. Furthermore, he's doing it for the sake of love." Hearing this, Tokyo broke into a cold sweat. "Love? What love? How did this go from borrowing money to love?" Turning to Levi, he stammered, What are you talking about?" Levi, unfazed, continued her explanation. "That's right. I'm afraid he was referring to me. Because I am the lover of Demon King Dantalion." Her words hit the room like a bombshell. leaving everyone utterly speechless. The entire meeting descended into chaos, with attendees shouting over one another. What are you saying? This is insane. Imagine the Demon King and her? Levi, maintaining her composure, continued. I approached Dantalion on my own accord, because I wanted to become his lover. Her declaration shifted the room's mood, from shock to outrage. You trash, someone shouted. How dare you call yourself the Demon King's lover? Someone get this woman out of here. But before their shouts could escalate further, Levi silenced the room with one sentence. All of this is to turn him into a dog for the company. At the head of the table, Eva, who had remained silent until now, suddenly burst into laughter, a manic cackle that echoed throughout the room. Haha, what do you think, everyone? This half-breed, born of humanity and shark U-boot, has not only made the Demon King a permanent servant of the company, but she's also rewritten her own fate. She's even willing to pay with her body. And now, she's practically the wife of the Demon King. This is truly remarkable. Kensuke really is brimming with talent. Eva leaned back, his grin widening as he declared, Normally, I wouldn't agree to lend someone like him more money, but this will be a very special debt. Haha, Levi La July. Return to the Demon King's castle and tell him I will grant his request for 10,000 Libra. And so, Dantalion successfully secured the loan from the capitalistic monster of a company. Half a month later, May 3rd, 1505, Merchant City of Kairos. Levi, following Dantalion's orders, arrived in the bustling city to gather the necessary ingredients for crafting the cure. A merchant, perplexed by her unusual request, asked, Wait, Miss Levi, did I hear you correctly? Levi raised a sample of an herb in her hand and replied, Yes. First, I need you to collect as many of these herbs as possible, one by one. Levi's words only deepened the merchant's astonishment. What? You're telling us to only gather herbs? You're seriously using 8,000 Libra to hire thousands of people just to do that? Why do you even want these herbs? They're just addictive plants. Levi, her tone cold and unyielding, replied, You don't need to know. This is an order from Demon King Dantalion. Just do it as quickly as possible. Without another word, she turned and walked away. The workers standing nearby, having watched the exchange, began snickering derisively. That woman just spent an absurd amount of money, following the orders of a big idiot Demon King. He must have lost his mind. This is laughable. Isn't she rumored to be his lover? Haha, if that's true, then she's just as much of a joke as he is. This time, Dantalion's completely doomed. A month later, June 20th, 1505, at the Demon King's castle, Levi had finally completed her task of gathering the herbs. She approached Dantalion to deliver her report. Your Majesty, as per your request, I've successfully gathered all the herbs you needed. They've been assembled and are under strict guard. Dantalion, hearing this, closed the book he was reading and responded, I see. Well done. Despite the praise, Levi couldn't help but feel puzzled. What exactly was Dantalion planning? Why had he spent such an enormous amount of money on what seemed to be useless herbs? Her curiosity got the better of her, and she finally asked, Your Majesty, what exactly are you planning? You said a plague was imminent, which is why you borrowed the money. Then you spent 80% of it on buying these herbs. Why? Dantalion chuckled softly and replied, Foo-foo, think about it. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea if such a plague will even happen. Levi, after taking a moment to process this, asked hesitantly, Is that so? Dantalion smiled and continued, First of all, let me commend you for doing an excellent job with this task. Let's raise a toast to your success. Levi hesitated, her voice faltering. No, I. Her reluctance made Dantalion arch an eyebrow in amusement. You're refusing me? Something I especially asked you to do? Caught off guard, Levi quickly responded, I'm sorry. Facing Levi, Dantalion handed her the cup in his hand and said, I'm just joking. Don't make that pitiful face. Levi, you've done an excellent job. Let's raise a toast to our future. Hearing this, Levi hesitantly lifted her cup and drank the contents in one gulp. But the moment she finished, her expression turned to surprise, and she asked, "Your Majesty, what was that?" Dantalion began laughing maniacally, as though he'd lost his mind. "Haha, I made it from the herbs you gathered. So, how does it taste? Delicious, right?" His teasing tone sparked a flicker of annoyance in Levi's eyes. "Your Majesty, surely you're joking?" "No, I'm serious," Dantalion replied. "To borrow the 10.000 Libra, you told the company that I'd gone mad and was creating a medicine to cure a disease. So, isn't it perfectly logical that I'd make something out of those herbs?" Levi, hearing this, said nothing, her silence reflecting her refusal to entertain this lunacy further. Dantalion, noticing her quiet, continued, "Anyway, what's today's date?" "It's June 20th, 1505. Why do you ask?" Levi inquired. Instead of answering directly, Dantalion pulled out a pen and began writing something on a piece of paper. "Levi, my dear, starting tomorrow, you won't need to visit the castle as frequently. Instead, I want you to go to this address and learn about it." He handed her the paper, and while its contents were unclear, Levi stared at it, puzzled. "What does this even mean?" she muttered. "Hee." Dantalion chuckled. "Just go there, and you'll understand. You've worked hard. Levi, why not take this opportunity to relax? Explore some new places. Clear your head." Dantalion's words were accompanied by a mischievous, almost sinister grin. June 24th, 1505. Following the instructions on the paper, Levi arrived at the Shirakas Travel Baths, a luxurious spa resort in the Kingdom of Sadia. Standing at the entrance, she muttered to herself, "I really don't understand that man. What on earth is he planning?" As Levi pondered, she stepped into the bathhouse, her eyes scanning the surroundings and observing the patrons. "He sent me to a place like this. What could possibly be the issue here?" She recalled the note Dantalion had handed her. Kingdom of Sadia, Shirakas, public bathhouse, joint pain cure, bruise remedy. The cryptic words on the note stirred Levi's suspicions. Could he really have predicted an outbreak of some kind? No, that's impossible. There's no way he has that kind of ability. But something feels off about all of this. While Levi wrestled with her thoughts, a sudden loud scream rang out from nearby, immediately catching her attention. She rushed toward the sound, her instincts kicking in. "What's going on?" she asked urgently. A blonde woman, visibly panicked, pointed toward a figure on the ground. She suddenly collapsed. Levi's gaze shifted to the figure, a girl with green hair. Though the girl wasn't completely unconscious, her eyes were unfocused, her body swaying as if on the verge of fainting. The symptoms looked eerily like heat stroke. "Hey, are you okay? What's happening? Wake up." Levi called out. The girl could only mutter weakly, "It hurts so much." "Where does it hurt? Tell me where you're in pain." "My whole body. It's all aching," the girl whispered. Hearing this, Levi quickly placed her hand on the girl's forehead to check her temperature. The moment she did, her eyes widened in shock. "You're burning up," Levi exclaimed. "Hang on, I'll call for help right away." But before she could finish her sentence, her eyes froze on something else. Around the girl's neck, a dark bruise had formed, just as described in Dantalion's note. "No way. This is the black bruise?" Levi muttered, her heart racing. While she was still trying to process the connection, another wave of loud screams erupted from the bathhouse. "Someone else has collapsed over here. There's another one. Help. Somebody. Please help us." The escalating cries for help and panic made Levi's chest tighten with dread. What on earth is happening here? She glanced back at the green-haired girl, the bruise on her neck a chilling reminder of Dantalion's warning. With chaos breaking out all around her, Levi couldn't shake the growing fear that Dantalion's prediction might have been right after all. Not long after, at the hospital, the first wave of those who had collapsed was pronounced dead. The weary voice of the doctor echoed through the room. "Those who are still alive should go home and rest. This is the 30th patient we've lost. My God, what's happening?" Levi stood frozen, unable to believe what was unfolding before her eyes. This can't be real. How could he have predicted this? While she was lost in thought, The doctor's voice beside her snapped her back to reality. Are you all right? Everyone in this room is infected, yet you seem perfectly fine. You should leave immediately. It's better for you to get out of this town while you still can. The doctor's words brought back a vivid memory for Levi. The moment she drank the concoction Dantalion had handed her. This can't be. But there's no other explanation for it. As much as I hate to admit it, he was right. The plague, it's real. It's happening. Levi thought to herself. Her expression clouded with dread. 20 days later, July 16th, 1505, Royal Calendar. At Kinsuka headquarters, a tiny fairy darted through the corridors, carrying an urgent letter for Tokyo. Sir Tokyo, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have something urgent to report. Tokyo, seated at a table pouring tea, snapped. Then don't just shout. You idiot. Can't you see? I'm in the middle of an important conversation. With Lady Simon here? He quickly turned to Simon, lowering his voice to apologize. My deepest apologies for the interruption. From across the table, a melodic voice responded. Oh, don't worry about it. Is it something urgent? Please, handle it. Don't mind me. The voice belonged to a stunningly beautiful woman. Simon, the demon king of beauty and allure, ranked 9th among the 72 demon kings. Her presence seemed to fluster Tokyo further. As he stammered, I'm terribly sorry. Truly. Then, regaining his composure, he turned back to the fairy and barked. Well, what is it? What's so important that you had to interrupt? At that moment, the fairy assistant nervously handed over a letter, her voice trembling with worry. We've just received an urgent report from the command center. If this is just another piece of nonsense, I swear I'll lose it. Tokyo muttered to himself as he began reading the letter. As his eyes scanned the contents, Tokyo's expression shifted from mild annoyance to outright shock. His eyes widened as though trying to verify if what he was reading could possibly be true. The letter detailed the outbreak of a deadly plague, originating from Shirakas and rapidly spreading across the kingdom of Sadia. It warned that neighboring nations would inevitably be affected within days, and the mortality rate was a staggering 80%. What? Tokyo exclaimed, unable to contain his shock. His outburst caught the attention of Demon King Simon, seated across from him. What's going on? She asked. Curiosity piqued. And nothing, Tokyo stammered, quickly returning to the letter. The message continued. There are rumors that Demon King Dantalion has created a miracle cure for the plague. One of his subordinates has been traveling across 6 regions, collecting the necessary herbs for the medicine. On Dantalion's orders, the estimated value of this medicine is currently at 2.3 million gold and is rising rapidly. All administrators are to convene at the headquarters immediately. As Tokyo read further, his face turned pale, reflecting the escalating gravity of the situation. Simon, intrigued by his shifting expressions, leaned forward with a mischievous smile. What is it? She asked, extending her hand. Let me see that. Here, Lady Simon, Tokyo said hastily, handing her the letter. The voluptuous Demon King, after reading the contents, let out an amused chuckle. Well, this is quite the interesting development. Meanwhile, at Dantalion's castle, Dantalion sat leisurely, gazing at the darkened sky through his castle windows. The sound of approaching footsteps prompted him to glance over his shoulder. Huh, you're back sooner than I expected, he said, his tone teasing. Why don't you relax and rest a little, my dear Levi? His playful remark didn't elicit much of a reaction. Levi's expression remained robotic, completely devoid of emotion. Her blank demeanor, while predictable, still amused Dantalion. He pressed further, his grin widening. Why do you look so pale? I thought you enjoyed hot springs. At this point, Levi fixed her gaze on Dantalion, her voice firm as she asked, You knew everything from the start, didn't you? You knew about this terrible plague? Dantalion responded with a cryptic smile, his tone calm and unbothered. Think whatever you like. Of course, his vague answer did little to satisfy Levi. She pressed him further, her voice rising. Stop pretending you don't know anything. The plague that broke out in Shirakas, and those herbs you had me gather, They're the ingredients to create the miracle cure for it. Her words were resolute, but Dantalion, unfazed, simply played dumb. I really have no idea what you're talking about. Levi, didn't I already tell you from the start? He let out a maniacal laugh, his grin growing disturbingly wide. Inwardly, Dantalion thought to himself, of course, I know everything. I've known since long before it happened. This is all part of the storyline from the game. Dungeon Defense. The plague begins in the year 1515, after it spreads across the entire world, turning it into a living hell. But its origins trace back to the summer of 1505, at a hot spring town called Shirakas. A cure wasn't discovered until a year later, and even then, it was by sheer coincidence. The miracle herb, blackgrass, was dismissed as nothing but a weed until then. The thought of it made Dantalion chuckle to himself. And here I am, living through this world at just the right moment. The outbreak starting point. I've used what I already knew to position myself as the only one capable of curing this plague. And all of this is thanks to you, my dear Levi. Turning to Levi, he stroked his chin in mock curiosity. I wonder how the company is reacting right now. He mused aloud. They must be in complete chaos, running around like headless chickens. Levi, still tense, responded with worry. There's an emergency meeting happening as we speak. Oh, I know, Dantalion replied casually. But with things so urgent, why aren't you there? Why come here instead? He leaned forward slightly, his tone teasing. Let me guess what you're thinking. Shall I? You're afraid that going back there would put your life in danger. Surely those fools at the company must believe that predicting a plague like this is an impossible feat. They're probably already suspecting that someone deliberately caused this outbreak. And now, they're scrambling to figure out who, the culprit, and their motive. He paused, letting his words sink in, before grinning slyly. Tell me, Levi, who's the real culprit here? Isn't it you? As Dantalion spoke, his piercing gaze bore into Levi, each word he uttered like an arrow striking her deepest fears. Cold sweat began to bead on her forehead, her unease growing with every passing moment. Dantalion's voice continued, calm yet cutting, seducing a demon king, becoming his lover, and promising your company that you turn him into your pet dog. But then you coincidentally show up at the very place where the plague originated. Not only that, you also bought countless rare and specific herbs. All of this, Levi, paints a clear picture of you as the mastermind. And you know this, don't you? That's why you came here. Instead of returning to your company, his words, seemingly laced with an uncanny ability to read her thoughts, made Levi's face pale. She staggered backward, a mixture of fear and confusion clouding her mind. Her thoughts raced uncontrollably. From the moment I was born, I've been treated like a stain, a half-breed, an illegitimate child. I worked harder than anyone, pushed myself to the brink, all to get here. I wanted to prove to everyone that I am capable, that everything I've achieved is because of my own efforts. But this demon king, who is he, really? He's not the foolish Dantalion I once knew. Or is he? Is he still the naive fool I thought I could control? While Levi struggled with her inner turmoil, Dantalion's voice broke through her thoughts. Oh, my sweet Levi, he cooed. You have only one option left. Surrender and become my subordinate. If you pledge your loyalty to me, I will grant you power and wealth. I will put you in charge of everything related to the plague's cure. His sudden proposition jolted Levi from her thoughts. What? She exclaimed in shock. Dantalion ignored her surprise, his voice taking on a more commanding tone. This plague will ravage the world. Almost everyone, young and old alike, will succumb to it. Death will spare no one. Even those who mocked you, those who despised you for being a half-breed, will find themselves desperately clinging to life, begging for survival. They will grovel, offering anything to work under you, just to gain access to the cure. He leaned closer, his grin dark and menacing. A mere half-breed, once shunned and belittled, will hold the lives of hundreds, no, thousands, in her hands. Tell me, Levi, don't you want that? The power, the control. Now, what will you choose? Dantalion's honeyed words felt like poison disguised as nectar, pouring directly into Levi's ears. At that moment, Strange and conflicting thoughts began to stir within her. From the beginning, I should never have targeted him. I wanted to turn him into a puppet for the company. But now, submitting to him feels wrong. And yet, why is my heart racing like this? After a long battle within her mind, Levi finally made a decision. She let out a soft sigh, her lips curling into a faint smile. Slowly, she knelt on one knee before Dantalion and declared, I understand now. From this moment forward, my life, Levi La July, belongs entirely to you, Demon King Dantalion. With those words, she took Dantalion's hand and placed a gentle kiss upon it, a symbolic gesture of her loyalty. Dantalion, seated before her, smirked as he listened to her pledge. Oh, my dear Levi, he said, his tone dripping with amusement. Because you've entrusted everything to me, I shall do the same for you. I will show you the most wondrous thing you've ever laid eyes on. Time passed quickly, and a week had gone by since Levi pledged her allegiance to Dantalion. Yet, as she observed her new master, she couldn't help but feel exasperated. Demon King, my dear master, she thought, you either spend your time reading the old books scattered around this castle, or sleeping like a dead pig. I have no idea what goes on in your head. Half a year earlier, Levi had approached Dantalion with her own motives. It's an honor to meet you, Your Majesty, she had said. I'm here as a representative of Kinsika Enterprises. My name is… Before she could finish, Dantalion had cut her off, shouting, Silence! I have no interest in the name of a filthy, half-breed mutt. I am very busy. What do you want? His harsh words had immediately painted him as trash, even worse than Levi had imagined. And just as she had predicted, the moment Levi showed him the money, Dantalion had pounced on it without hesitation. Levi began spreading rumors far and wide, claiming that a treasure lay hidden within the Demon King's castle. As expected, the promise of riches quickly drew the attention of treasure-hungry adventurers. Hee, I heard you have a map of the Demon King Dantalion's castle. Before long, a band of adventurers, led by a blonde-haired man, showed up at Levi's door, eager to claim the prize. What followed was a sequence of events that led these adventurers to storm Dantalion's castle and, as they saw it, send him packing. Unbeknownst to them, however, our protagonist transmigrated into Dantalion's body, taking over as the new Demon King Dantalion. And instead of begging for mercy, he sent every one of those adventurers back with a gift, a box each, filled with humiliation and despair. Initially, Levi's plan had been to subject Dantalion to a bit of suffering, thinking it would eventually drive him to crawl back to her, begging for her help. But the Demon King she faced now was nothing like the fool she had anticipated. Now, he held the fate of half the continent in his hands. Meanwhile, in the chaos raging outside, Dantalion somehow still managed to sleep peacefully. How was he able to sleep so soundly in times like this? Levi muttered, her voice tinged with frustration. Her thoughts wandered to the events of the past week. I've received letters from several nations, requesting to purchase the medicine to combat the plague. As expected, the company has remained suspiciously quiet. Unbelievable. Scene change, Tokyo's perspective. Standing before a massive door, Tokyo hesitated for a moment before calling out, Lord Eva, are you in there? From inside the dimly lit room, Eva's voice echoed back, It's you. Tor, come in. Tokyo pushed the heavy door open, stepping into the room shrouded in darkness. Perhaps it was the nature of vampires to avoid light, but the eerie atmosphere made the space feel suffocating. Unable to see Eva anywhere, Tokyo called out again, Lord Eva, where are you? In response, Eva's calm voice resonated through the room. A moment later, the candelabra on the table suddenly burst into flame. Illuminating the room, Eva's form came into view, seated elegantly as the flickering light cast long shadows across the walls. Come, sit. Eva gestured casually. So, what brings you here? His sharp gaze bore into Tokyo, awaiting an answer. Tor, after sitting down, quickly began to explain, his voice filled with urgency. Things are going terribly wrong. The plague is spreading rapidly, and it's only a matter of time before it engulfs the entire continent. Eva, listening calmly, responded in a cold, measured tone. I understand. According to our analysis, around 30% of the population will perish. The number hit Tor like a thunderclap. 30%? That's impossible. Surely you're joking. My lord. Eva shot him a sharp glance. His voice icy. Have I ever been one to joke? And no, sir. Tor stammered, his nerves evident. Eva continued, his tone unwavering. There's more. As of today, all Demon Kings have suspended their commercial transactions with our company. The revelation hit Tor like a hammer. Their company was the largest enterprise on the continent. Losing trade agreements with the Demon Kings would deal a devastating blow to their economy. Tor's frustration boiled over. He slammed his fist on the table, shouting, Damn it! This is all that filthy half-breed's fault. Eva waited for Tor to regain some composure before asking, So, what's become of her? Tor hesitated before replying, I've been unable to contact her. His words didn't surprise Eva, who had already anticipated this outcome. Just as I thought. Eva mused, his voice laced with disdain. I'm certain she's planning to betray the company. According to the reports, Levi was seen in the area where the plague originated. She's been monopolizing the supply of herbs, capable of treating the disease for weeks now. He let out a bitter laugh, mocking the notion, predicting a plague. Even God couldn't do such a thing. It's obvious this plague isn't some random coincidence. Someone orchestrated this. Eva's words dripped with venom, yet they sent a chill down Tor's spine. The green-skinned man broke into a nervous sweat. So, what you're saying is, someone deliberately caused this plague? And now they're manipulating us to their advantage? Eva leaned back in his chair, his voice deep and calculating. It seems that way. That Levi girl, she may appear to be the culprit, but someone like her, a mere whelp, shouldn't have the capability to pull off something of this magnitude. Tor nodded in agreement and said, You're right. It's impossible. But what if it's Dantalion? Could he be behind this? His suggestion made Eva pause, contemplating for a moment before replying. Highly unlikely. If that waste of space Dantalion had the capability to orchestrate something like this, he wouldn't still be sitting at rank 71. Eva's lips curled into a faint smirk as he added, More likely. Both he and Levi are nothing more than pawns in a far greater game. Tor, his brow furrowed, pressed further. So then, is there really someone in this world capable of deliberately creating and spreading a deadly plague like this? Eva's gaze turned sharp, his voice low and deliberate. There is one who comes to mind. Tor's face grew even paler, his sweat now dripping more heavily. Yes, sir. Don't tell me you mean? Yes. Eva's tone carried an air of finality. The greatest necromancer in the Six Lands, the immortal king himself, the one and only master of dark magic and plagues, Demon King Barbatos, ranked 8th. Hearing this, Tor's breathing grew labored, his mind racing. If this really is connected to a Demon King of such high rank, then this situation has spiraled far beyond anything we can handle easily. The realization weighed on him heavily, his thoughts growing more frantic. Could Barbatos truly be behind this? Barbatos has always harbored disdain for humans, having sparked countless wars and razed entire nations to the ground. If this plague spreads further, the damage to humanity will be catastrophic, far surpassing that of the demon kind. In the worst case, humans could even face extinction. Noticing the unease written all over Tor's face, Eva spoke again, his voice cutting through the tension. In the end, this is simply the nature of a demon king. If Barbatos is indeed responsible, it should come as no surprise. Tor, regaining some composure, asked hesitantly, if Barbatos truly is behind this, then, Lord Eva, what do you intend to do? Our company has long maintained favorable relations with numerous demon kings. It's thanks to their backing that we've grown so powerful. But if you plan to oppose a demon king, we'll need to prepare carefully. And more importantly, we'll need solid evidence. Eva smiled, a glint of cunning in his eyes. Evidence, you say? We already have it. Levi and Dantalion. We'll make them spill everything willingly. Eva turned to Tor and said with cold assurance, You don't need to worry. I've already taken action. I'll make them regret ever trying to oppose me. Tor stood there, his mouth agape in astonishment at Eva's swift and decisive moves. Suddenly, a beautiful young woman appeared behind him, holding a letter in her hands. Lord Eva, she said softly. The ancient vampire turned, a wide grin spreading across his face. Ah, there you are. Laughing heartily, he reached out and took the letter from her hands. With the letter in his grasp, Eva began weaving an intricate spell, causing the words written on the paper to lift off the page and float midair. The cryptic symbols hovered, glowing faintly, their meaning indecipherable to Tor. Yet, as Eva read through them, his laughter grew louder, his expression one of utter triumph. Closing his hand, the glowing letters vanished. Turning to Tor, Eva commanded, Tor, go to Lady Simon. Tell her everything we know. The only one capable of opposing Barbados is Lady Simon herself? Tor nodded quickly, responding with a firm, yes, sir. As he left, his thoughts raced. That's right. Lady Simon and Barbados have always been at odds. She'll undoubtedly agree to cooperate immediately. As Tor's mind churned with possibilities, Eva's eerie laughter rang out behind him, sending a chill through the air. Ha ha ha. Those vermin dare defy me? Let's see how long they last. With those words, Eva's form began to dissolve into a wisp of smoke, his voice growing distant as he rushed forward. I can't wait any longer. One by one, they will fall before me. And first, Levi La July. I'll turn that little half-breed into another doll in my living collection. As he vanished, his parting act was to sink his fangs into the neck of the green-haired girl who had brought the letter, draining her blood mercilessly. Scene change, Levi and Dantalion. Back at the Demon King's castle, Levi was desperately trying to wake Dantalion. Your Majesty, please wake up. This is urgent. Her voice echoed through the room. Dantalion, groggy and half asleep, stirred slowly, rubbing his eyes as he mumbled, What's going on now? Levi, holding a parchment tightly in her hands, spoke hurriedly. We've just received a summons. Your Majesty. Unlike Levi's anxious demeanor, Dantalion merely blinked in confusion and asked, A summons? What the heck is that supposed to mean? Trying to make him understand, Levi began explaining. It's a meeting, but one that's never called so suddenly. It's about to begin. The gathering of the rulers of this world. The Night of Witches is being convened. A choir of haunting voices suddenly echoed across the pristine sky. A wondrous world awaits. We ascend to the skies, higher and higher, amidst the melodic chants. Another voice, giddy and childlike, rang out. Hee, tell me, sister, who's our next guest? A blonde-haired girl answered in an amused tone. Fufu. He's the Demon King Dantalion. Gasps of surprise and awe followed. Oh my, the Demon King Dantalion? He's the one with the half-blood, half-beauty for a consort, right? Ah, such a romantic tale. I bet he's a sophisticated gentleman. But then, a voice of authority cut through the chatter. Enough of that nonsense. Don't overpraise him so soon. We're almost there. From their vantage point, the towering castle of Demon King Dantalion came into view. Meanwhile, Levi was growing increasingly exasperated, trying to hurry Dantalion along. Your Majesty, please, we must go now. Dantalion groaned, his tone dripping with irritation. Quiet down. Why do I even have to go? And what even is this so-called Night of Witches? He grumbled as he reluctantly stepped out of his dim hideout. The soft glow of the evening sun bathed him in light, forcing him to shield his eyes. Clearly, he wasn't used to being outside. It had been too long. Levi sighed, her patience wearing thin. How can a demon king like you not know what the Night of Witches is? But then, something seemed to cross her mind, and she asked cautiously, Wait, have you ever attended one of these gatherings before? Never, Dantalion answered nonchalantly. Having no choice, Levi began explaining in more detail. I see. The Night of Witches is an event where all demon kings and their entourages gather. They discuss matters that transcend national borders and work to uphold the laws of the world. These days, The meeting is called only when absolutely necessary, and attendance is mandatory for all demon kings. Hearing Levi's explanation, Dantalion lazily scratched his ear and muttered, "Just give me more reasons why I shouldn't have to go." His indifferent attitude drew a sharp, judgmental glare from Levi. She crossed her arms and retorted, "However, the topic of this meeting is the plague. Your Majesty, it's being held in Niflheim, the headquarters of Kanuska Corporation. This means the company is also the host of the gathering. Currently, you are the only one capable of creating the cure. If you don't attend, they'll assume we're plotting against them. That's exactly what they want. A reason to crush us entirely." Levi's blunt words seemed to snap Dantalion out of his sleepy haze. Sitting up straight, he frowned, clearly deep in thought. This is bad. One problem after another. But she's right. Going against them directly isn't worth it. Coming to a conclusion, Dantalion nodded and said, "All right, I get it. We're going to the Night of Witches." A mischievous grin spread across his face as he thought, "Besides, this might be a good chance to gather more intel. And in the worst-case scenario, I've got Levi La July. That's why I spent so much money and effort convincing her to become my subordinate in the first place." Then, as another thought crossed his mind, he turned to Levi and asked, "By the way, Levi, how exactly are we supposed to get there? Kanuska won't want us to attend. They'll definitely try to stop us on the way." Levi, unfazed by her master's thinly veiled fear of danger, pulled out a pocket watch to check the time. "I anticipated that, so I arranged for a special appointment. They should be here any moment now." Just as she finished speaking, a hauntingly melodic chant rang out from above. "A wondrous world awaits. We ascend to the skies. 1, 2, 3. Join me now. Join me." Dantalion's eyes widened in surprise, snapping upward to observe the source of the sound. The sky above them was alive, with shimmering lights and ghostly figures, their voices filling the air with eerie harmonies. Above their heads, 4 or 5 witches rode their broomsticks gracefully through the air. Despite flying at high altitudes, they stubbornly stuck to wearing skirts. Leading the group was a petite witch, resembling a lowly, who began her descent. Anticipating the wind's playful mischief, she firmly held her skirt down, shielding herself from Dantalion's intrusive gaze. Once the others had landed, the group composed themselves and spoke in unison. "Thank you for using our services. We are here to escort the Demon King and his esteemed consort throughout the journey. We are the Sisters of Bobo." Dantalion's eyes nearly popped out of his head as he took in the sight of the lowly witches. Leaning towards Levi, he whispered, "Hey, they're just kids. Are you sure this is okay? When it comes to an actual fight, aren't we going to end up protecting them instead?" Levi, exhaling in exasperation, replied, "Your Majesty, you shouldn't judge them by their appearance. After forming a pact with the Demon King, witches are granted eternal youth. Though they may look small and delicate, they are anything but weak. In fact, each of them is remarkably talented. Oh, and by the way, they're all over 200 years old." Dantalion's jaw dropped. He realized that if he added up the entire lifespan of his own lineage, it might not even come close to the combined age of these lowly grandmas. Gathering his composure, Dantalion raised his voice with an air of authority and sincerity. "I deeply apologize for my earlier comment. Dear Sisters of Bobo, please rise. I truly appreciate your presence today. Let us work together and succeed in this endeavor." His polite and heartfelt words lit up the faces of the witches, especially the blonde one. Her eyes sparkled with adoration, transforming into the shape of little hearts as she gushed, "Yes, O mighty Demon King." Without missing a beat, she raised her hand toward the sky, casting an intricate spell as she declared, "Now, let's get moving." And right after she spoke, a chair suddenly appeared above her broom. Then, the blonde woman nonchalantly said, "Please, have a seat." At her invitation, Dantalion hesitated a little, but eventually sat down, feeling somewhat uneasy. This was because the chair had neither a windshield nor any safety belts. As a result, he genuinely began to worry about the service. "Is this safe?" Dantalion stammered nervously. The blonde woman, hearing this, reassured him. Please don't worry. Once again, thank you for using our service. Now, let's head to Enflam together. Please enjoy the ride. Later that evening, the group arrived at Handmaid Square in Enflam. After disembarking, Delta started to feel sorry for his rear end. Ouch, my butt hurts. Sitting for 6 hours straight like that. Beside him, the blonde woman spoke again. We hope you're feeling okay after such a long journey. You all must be tired as well. Dantalion replied. Immediately after, he came up with an idea and suggested, if you don't mind, why don't you all join us for a meal? His words made the sisters swoon in admiration. Are you serious? It would be such an honor. The blonde woman then suggested a location. In that case, we know just the place. Please, lead the way, Dantalion said with a smile. However, Dantalion's sudden invitation to the blonde sisters made Lebai's feel a little uneasy. She reminded him, Sir Dantalion? Understanding her concern, he replied, we're all exhausted, aren't we? We'll collapse if we don't rest a bit. At his response, Levi remained silent, her expression unreadable. Seeing this, I couldn't help but wonder what was on her mind. Turning to Levi, Dantalion asked, what's wrong? Are you worried the company might do something to us? Don't worry so much. There's no way the Demon King would be attacked in a city like this. Hearing that, Lebai stayed silent for a moment before finally saying, I understand. The group quickly followed the blonde woman to look for a restaurant. While walking, they noticed countless people happily drinking and chatting together. No one seemed even slightly concerned about the plague. This sight left Dantalion a little surprised. They all seem so cheerful, he remarked. The blonde woman responded with a smile. That's right. This is a place where people can freely do whatever they like. As she spoke, she pointed straight ahead and exclaimed, We're here. Thank you, Dantalion said as they arrived. He was about to step inside when a loud shout suddenly erupted from behind, catching his attention. Are you kidding me? Following Dantalion's gaze, they saw an old man being beaten by someone. Under the attacker's relentless kicks, the old man could only curl up and apologize repeatedly. I'm very sorry, sir. But even with the apology, the aggressor continued to curse and berate him. The beer tastes awful, the chairs are uncomfortable, and the service is terrible. You think you can just take our money like that? Old men like you should just die. Why bother living and wasting space? As he cursed, he continued to stomp on the old man mercilessly. Not far from the commotion, Dantalion watched them with cold, piercing eyes. Then he asked, Hey, Lebai, who are these trashy people? Levi, hearing his question, explained, That's Andromalius, the 72nd Demon King. Hearing this, Dantalion began to think. In the demon realm, there are a total of 72 Demon Kings. I'm ranked 71st. So, that guy is the 72nd? I've always wondered what he looks like. As the thought crossed his mind, he casually grabbed a glass of wine from a nearby table, took a sip, and then raised the glass high in the air, as if about to do something. Levi, as Dantalion's sole attendant, immediately noticed that he was about to pull a bold stunt. Looking at Dantalion, he grinned mischievously before dropping the glass from his hand. Haha, this trip just got a lot more entertaining than I expected, he said, his face now radiating a terrifying expression. Dungeon defense game. This is a world where 72 Demon Kings rule. It's a fantasy game with the objective of defeating all the Demon Kings. When the protagonist was just a child, his village was destroyed by one of these Demon Kings. Years later, he grew up, gaining the strength needed to take revenge against the Demon King responsible. The story revolves around him and his journey across the world alongside his companions. The game begins in the year 1515 of the Empire's calendar, but the current year is 1505 to 10 years before the start of the game. I am Dantalion, the 71st Demon King, and the one who destroyed the protagonist's village. The one who created the moment this hero was born is none other than the 72nd Demon King, Andromalius. Back to reality. At this moment, the cursing and beating from Andromalius continued to echo. The worried and helpless looks of the people around only highlighted the chaos. Filthy old man. I said I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. Shut up. You trash. Just die already. Take this. While Andromalius kept beating the old man, Dantalion stood off to the side, smiling slyly. Haha, I think it won't be long now. Soon, he'll attack the protagonist's village. Things are moving faster than I expected. Thinking this, Dantalion casually picked up a glass of wine from a nearby table, took a sip, and muttered to himself, "Let's see what this guy does next." He then let the glass drop from his hand, the sound of it shattering catching Andromalius's attention. The old man on the ground used this brief moment of distraction to catch his breath. Meanwhile, Dantalion stared intently at Andromalius with a mocking grin. Seeing Dantalion's provocative expression, Andromalius sneered and shouted, "Hey, you bastard! What are you looking at?" Despite this, Dantalion continued smiling silently, his calm demeanor only fueling Andromalius's anger. The Demon King's face twisted with rage, and he charged straight toward Dantalion. "What the hell are you laughing at, you bastard?" As Andromalius closed the distance, Dantalion, without a trace of concern, turned slightly and asked Levi behind him, "Levi, does this guy have any bodyguards or protective forces?" Levi replied calmly, "To my knowledge, he doesn't, sir. He spends most of his time gambling at the Nifem Casino. He's notorious for using his status as a Demon King to oppress the weak. Among all the Demon Kings, he's considered the most pathetic." After hearing Levi's explanation, Dantalion's face softened, and he said, "I see." Meanwhile, Andromalius started scrutinizing their attire, his thoughts running wild. What is he wearing? And those horns? Don't tell me that woman is a half-breed between a human and shark U-boot. Is he the one everyone keeps talking about? Turning toward Levi, she noticed Andromalius steadily approaching Dantalion. With concern, she advised, "Sir, please don't do anything too dangerous. Conflicts between demon kings cause a lot of trouble." Hearing her words, Dantalion smiled and asked, "Is that a rule?" "Yes," she replied. "Demon kings stand even above nobility. They are the most noble race, capable of wiping entire nations off the map. Furthermore, with a total of 72 demon kings, many issues arise. To maintain order, they all follow a shared set of laws. As you may know, one of these laws strictly forbids demon kings from fighting each other. Please, keep calm before considering any action against another demon king. Otherwise, you'll face severe punishment." The mention of severe punishment sparked a mischievous idea in Dantalion's mind. Haha, if that's the case, he thought to himself. Just as he began plotting, the mad dog Andromalius finally reached him. Andromalius shoved his face inches away from Dantalion's and demanded, "Who the hell are you?" In response to his question, Dantalion put on an incredibly smug, punchable expression and replied, "Haha, who I am doesn't matter. I just can't stand watching you oppress the townspeople. So, get out of my sight, trash." The enraged Andromalius widened his eyes in fury. "What did you say? Are you looking to die?" he threatened. "Haha, I'd love that. Come on, give it your best shot," Dantalion replied, his tone dripping with provocation. At this point, Andromalius could no longer hold back. He swung his fist toward Dantalion. Levi's, seeing this, quickly rushed forward, ready to intervene. However, Dantalion raised his hand, signaling her to stop. The reason for Dantalion's action was simple. He wanted to get hit by Andromalius. If Levi's explanation was accurate, then the moment Andromalius landed a punch on him, the consequences would fall squarely on Andromalius. "Perfect. Go ahead and hit me," Dantalion thought gleefully as he saw the fist coming toward him. But just as the punch was about to connect with his face, it suddenly stopped. A twisted laugh erupted from Andromalius. KHKHKH. "Lately, I've heard strange rumors. They say a demon king has taken a lowly creature as a lover. A half-breed, no less. I can't believe anyone would stoop so low. I didn't expect to meet you here, though. Am I right, Dantalion?" It seemed this mad dog wasn't as dumb as he looked. Upon realizing Dantalion's identity, he immediately stopped himself from falling into the trap. This earned a hint of admiration from Dantalion. Huh, turns out this guy isn't as foolish as I thought, he mused before saying aloud. "So what if you're right?" Andromalius let out a mocking laugh. KEH. I almost broke the law there. Demon kings are forbidden from attacking one another. After all, if I hadn't recognized you as Dantalion, I might have fallen into your trap. You provoked me on purpose, hoping I'd attack you. Didn't you? Did you really think I'd fall for that? Keh. You're just a clown. As he spoke, his grin widened into a taunting, exaggerated laugh. Dantalion, seeing his infuriating demeanor, remained silent, his expression unreadable. Andromalius then shifted his attention to Levi, standing quietly behind Dantalion. So it's you, isn't it? The wench who seduced a demon king. You're nothing but vermin. He sneered, his eyes narrowing with contempt. Just one look at you, and it's clear you're nothing more than a pathetic insect. Do you really think someone like you is equal to the noble demon kings? His gaze then turned lecherous as he stared at Levi. How did you manage to make him like you? I'm curious. Maybe I should have a taste of you myself. Hey. As he spoke, his filthy hand reached toward Levi's chest. But Levi, maintaining her icy demeanor, responded firmly. Please stop. However, Levi's words seemed to dampen Andromalius's enthusiasm. The moment she finished speaking, his face darkened. Then, as if struck by an idea, he turned back toward Dantalion and said, Dantalion, about the laws we discussed earlier. They only apply between demon kings. In other words, his lips curled into a savage grin, and he suddenly raised his fist, striking Levi square in the face. The crowd around them froze in shock, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. After landing the blow, Andromalius turned to Dantalion with a taunting smirk. I can hit anyone who isn't a demon king, can't I? And hitting her is no problem at all. I'll beat this half-breed into the ground, and then return her to you, if I feel like it. Or maybe I'll keep her for a while. Who knows? Ha ha ha. His words and demeanor made me want to plant a kick right in his face. Guys like him usually don't survive past a few chapters in stories like this. Turning back to Andromalius, he proudly showed off his violence, even bragging to the crowd. See that, you fools? I'll show no mercy to anyone who dares oppose me, whether it's women or children. All of you will bow and serve me. As he ranted, he began laughing maniacally, as though he'd completely lost his mind. Feeling that his threats weren't enough, he pointed toward Levi, who lay crumpled on the ground. Or maybe you lot want to end up like this pathetic half-breed. If necessary, I'll use force against every single one of you. His words cast a heavy silence over the crowd, heads lowered in submission under his oppressive gaze. Seeing the crowd's reaction, Andromalius's face lit up with smug satisfaction. Kh. He then turned to Levi, still lying on the ground, and raised his filthy foot, stomping down hard on her. The force of the blow caused Levi to cough in pain. Her anguished cries only seemed to excite Andromalius further. Haha, this feeling is exhilarating. After savoring his twisted pleasure, he finally turned his attention back to Dantalion. You've just been standing there, watching this whole time. Tell me, Dantalion, what do you think? Your precious lover is being tortured right before your eyes, and you're completely helpless to stop it. Ha ha ha. He then turned to the crowd again, mocking them further. You idiots, take a good look at me. Say my name. Ha ha ha. Yes, I am the ruler of this world. I am Demon King Andromalius. As Andromalius spoke, he widened his eyes and stuck out his tongue in a delusional display. It was baffling where someone ranked dead last among the demon kings got the confidence to spout such nonsense. As expected, right after he finished speaking, Dantalion, standing nearby, couldn't hold back any longer and burst out laughing. His laughter instantly wiped the smile off Andromalius's face. To be more precise, Andromalius's expression twisted into a scowl as he growled. What's so funny, Dantalion? Still chuckling, Dantalion suppressed his laughter and replied, Oh, nothing. It's just that you've been boasting non-stop, so I started wondering how many people actually follow you. But upon hearing this, Andromalius sneered and retorted mockingly. What? You're that much of a loser? Huh. If they don't submit to me, I'll force them to, just like I do with filthy half-breeds like her. Dantalion smirked and asked, Have you ever truly subdued anyone with your strength? What's that supposed to mean? Andromalius replied, confused. But before he could say more, he sensed something and quickly turned around, following his gaze. Levi, who had been lying crumpled on the ground moments ago, was now standing up, seemingly unscathed. Her calm, indifferent demeanor only fueled Andromalius's anger further. "You bastard," he roared. "You should have stayed down and shut your mouth. But it seems you have a death wish, don't you?" Despite his threats, Levi remained silent, staring at him as though he were nothing more than a clown. This infuriated Andromalius even more. Grinding his teeth, he snarled, "How dare you look at me like that? Who do you think you are to challenge me? You disgusting wretch?" With that, he swung his fist at her face, a feeble attempt to vent his growing frustration and helplessness. But immediately after, Andromalius's eyes widened in shock. Despite his punch, Levi remained standing, completely unfazed. She even turned to him coldly, giving him a glance as if to ask, "Is that all you've got?" Seeing her expression, Andromalius completely lost it. In a fit of rage, he swung his fist at her a second time and shouted, "Don't you dare act arrogant, you filthy insect. You should be on your knees before me. Who do you think you are?" Meanwhile, standing to the side, Dantalion watched the scene unfold with an amused grin, thinking to himself, Levi is tough as nails. She grew up in the slums, so she's used to being beaten. This mad dog's wild punches won't even scratch her." Turning back to Andromalius, the enraged Demon King continued to unleash his fury on Levi. Blow after blow, he screamed, "You wretched woman! I am the Demon King, the ruler of this world." With every word, another punch landed. But even after all the attacks, Levi stood firm, unshaken. Finally, as exhaustion set in, Andromalius paused, gasping for breath. Confusion crept into his thoughts. What is wrong with this woman? I'm a Demon King, yet she's completely unaffected. What kind of filthy half-breed is this? And what's with those eyes? Why is she looking at me like that? At this point, I can't help but comment. Her gaze is truly something else. The pinnacle of disdain. An expression that speaks volumes without words. Back to the story. Andromalius's mind began spiraling into murderous thoughts. "I'll kill her. I'll kill her. I'll kill this wretched woman no matter what." As his bloodlust surged, a calm voice suddenly interrupted him from behind. Dantalion spoke, his tone cutting through Andromalius's rage like a knife. Reflexively, Andromalius turned around, but the moment he did, all he saw was darkness. Because at that exact moment, Dantalion swung his blade, slicing cleanly across Andromalius's eyes. And just like that, the mad dog lost his vision entirely. The act of breaking the unspoken laws of the Demon Kings, Dantalion's bold move, left everyone around utterly stunned. Andromalius, now blinded, screamed in agony, "My eyes! My eyes! What have you done to my eyes?" The pitiful screams of Andromalius sounded like the sweetest melody to Dantalion. Watching him clutch his face and cry out in agony, Dantalion smiled and said, "You never really needed your eyes, did you? After all, you couldn't even see who you were messing with." Turning to Lebeis, who was visibly worried after witnessing Dantalion's actions, she hesitantly asked, "My lord, do you realize what this means?" But before she could say more, Dantalion surprised everyone by gently pulling her into an embrace. This unexpected action seemed to melt the icy resolve of the reserved young woman, awakening an unfamiliar warmth in her heart. As emotions swirled within her, Dantalion softly said, "You've been through a lot. I truly appreciate everything you've done." Even as he spoke, a sly, calculating grin crept across his face. It was clear that Dantalion was already hatching another plan, and, as if on cue, he gently took Levi's small hand in his and said, "Levi, give me your left hand. I wanted to save this for a more fitting occasion, but in this moment, when you shine brighter than anyone else, I want to give it to you now." In Levi's astonished gaze, Dantalion placed a dazzling diamond ring on her finger. The sight left Lebeis utterly stunned. "Your Highness, what is the meaning of this?" Before she could finish, Dantalion held her hand firmly and interrupted, "Don't say anything. Just be silent and wait." Then, turning to address the gathered citizens, he declared loudly, "People of Niflheim, I am Dantalion, the 71st Demon King. And standing beside me is the woman I love. We may differ in status, but that doesn't matter. Even though our union is forbidden, I still love her." He then gestured to Andromalius, who was writhing in pain on the ground. "This man has harmed the one I love. Tell me, can you overlook such an injustice?" "Because I cannot." As he spoke, Dantalion silently apologized to Andromalius in his heart. "Andromalius, I hold no personal grudge against you, but I will ensure you disappear. It's time for judgment." Dantalion's declaration left the crowd around him utterly stunned. Eyes widened and mouths agape. They couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Impossible. Is he really breaking the Demon King's laws for the sake of love? Turning to Levi, Dantalion whispered softly, "My dear Levi, step back and watch. The real show is just beginning." Then he turned his gaze to Andromalius, who was kneeling in pain on the ground. With a commanding voice, Dantalion declared, "A tyrant like him, how much longer will you all continue to serve him? Are you truly okay with this? If justice truly exists in this world, then he must face judgment." Hearing this, Andromalius trembled with rage and shouted, "Shut up and listen to me. Judgment? Ha! We're only one rank apart. Dantalion, you're nothing but an empty drum, making noise without substance. You're the one who broke the law by attacking me. You're the one who should be judged." As he spoke, he broke into maniacal laughter, throwing his head back and yelling into the sky, "Guards, arrest Dantalion immediately. He's a criminal. If you don't, I'll kill every last one of you fools. Do you hear me? Dantalion? You idiot, you have no right to judge me." But Dantalion simply walked toward him with a cold expression, his voice calm yet cutting. "Oh, Andromalius. Still barking, aren't you? Even though your situation has already gone from bad to worse." Andromalius froze, clearly not comprehending what Dantalion meant. Then, Dantalion raised his voice and shouted, "Enough, citizens of Niflheim. In the name of a Demon King, I entrust the judgment of this man to you." The crowd looked at him, confused and unsure. Noticing their hesitation, Dantalion continued, his voice filled with conviction. "Yes, that's right. The reason we Demon Kings have lived for so long is because of all of you. And yet, this man, born as a Demon King, doesn't even understand what true strength is. Instead of fulfilling his responsibilities, he's indulged in endless drinking, gambling, and abusing the weak." Dantalion pointed at Andromalius, his voice sharp and unwavering. "Tell me, is this what you call a Demon King? He doesn't act like one. This world does not exist for someone like him. This world exists for you, for this land, for the future of its people." He then swept his gaze across the crowd. "Does he deserve to live? Now is the time for us to stand together. Rise, heroes of Niflheim." Dantalion's powerful speech left the surrounding citizens stunned, unable to find the words to respond. Meanwhile, Andromalius, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, began to panic and shouted, "Shut up, you bastard! You savages! Didn't you hear me? Seize him, now, you useless fools!" As he yelled, he frantically turned left and right, his voice growing more desperate with each passing moment. His visible anxiety was precisely what Dantalion had anticipated. "Why so frantic, Andromalius? Why so scared?" Dantalion teased with a calm smirk. "Ah, I see now. It's because of that little wound I inflicted. You're terrified because you can't see anything, aren't you?" These words struck directly at Andromalius's deepest fears, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. "Shut up. Shut your mouth," he weakly snapped, his voice trembling. But by showing this vulnerability, Andromalius had fallen right into Dantalion's trap. Seeing his reaction, Dantalion's smile widened as he clapped his hands together and said, "Don't worry, I understand. So, you're saying that even if someone killed you, you wouldn't know who it was, right?" This cold, cutting remark hit like a blade, causing Andromalius to scream in rage and fear. "Shut up. Stop talking. Enough." It was clear that by now, Andromalius was utterly terrified, and his fear quickly became reality. Moments later, a sword pierced through his back from behind. The sudden, searing pain made Andromalius tremble violently. He He turned his head as best he could, desperately asking, "Who's there?" But no one answered. The person who had struck him was none other than the old man he had tormented earlier. Andromalius, still racked with pain, looked around for an explanation, intending to lash out in anger. But before he could, Dantalion approached him with a sinister grin. He calmly placed his hand firmly on Andromalius's shoulder and said, "Haha, oh Andromalius, everything has gone exactly according to plan, and it's all thanks to you." Leaning in closer, Dantalion whispered into the ear of the trembling fool, his tone dripping with mockery and menace. Hearing Dantalion's words, Andromaeus shouted in shock, "You, what are you saying?" But before he could finish his sentence, the voices of the surrounding citizens began to rise, growing louder and more menacing. "It's him! It's him! Kill him! Kill him!" The bloodthirsty cries crept closer, sending Andromaeus into a panic. Blinded and unable to see anything, he couldn't even tell how many people were coming for him. As the voices neared, Andromaeus finally grasped the gravity of his situation. His tone shifted, pleading desperately, "Wait, wait, don't you think this through? Please, stop, don't, wait, I'm sorry, I'm begging you, forgive me." His cries for mercy echoed through the air. From a distance, Dantalion watched the scene unfold with a satisfied smile. "Truly, you reap what you sow. This is karma in its purest form." Turning away, he muttered, "It's over. Let's go." Without sparing another glance, he walked off, leaving Andromaeus to his fate, as the enraged citizens swarmed him, delivering their judgment. A short while later, Dantalion turned to the blonde woman and said, "Phew, I'm a bit tired. I'll have to take a rain check on dinner." The blonde woman quickly replied, "That's all right, my lord. You should rest. I'll escort you back." At that moment, Dantalion noticed something amiss. Looking at the group accompanying the blonde, he remarked, "Wait, isn't someone missing?" The blonde woman immediately turned around to check. After a quick glance, she exclaimed in frustration, "What's this? Is it Beatrice again? That girl, honestly." Apologizing profusely, she said to Dantalion, "I'm so sorry. She has a habit of wandering off." Dantalion, unfazed, paused for a moment, lost in thought. It seemed he was forming a theory as he said, "It's all right. But more importantly, there's something else I need to ask you ladies from the Bobo family." Switching to Beatrice, the witch. At this moment, Beatrice was already flying off somewhere on her broom, muttering to herself, "Dantalion. Ha ha ha. The next act will be even more spectacular." Scene transition. Kensuka Company. At Kensuka, Local was pacing nervously toward Eva's room. "Tomorrow is the night of witches, but I still haven't been able to contact Lady Eva. What's going on? It's already been a week." Lost in thought, he reached Eva's door and knocked. "Lady Eva, are you in there? Lady Eva, have you returned?" As he called out, he slowly pushed the door open and stepped inside. What greeted him was an unsettling sight. A row of upright coffins lined the room. Seeing this, Tokyo muttered to himself, "She's probably not back yet. But where could she have gone?" Just as he said that, a sudden hissing sound filled the room, startling him. And then, sitting casually on the windowsill, was Beatrice, the witch. She smirked, then spoke in a playful tone. "Hey, Tokyo, you're still keeping an eye on him, aren't you?" After speaking, she gracefully jumped down from the windowsill. Back to Local. Upon hearing Beatrice's question, Local didn't respond immediately. Instead, he asked, "Where exactly have you been? And what about Lady Eva?" It was almost impossible to believe that this cute little witch was actually an old man, Eva in disguise. Back to Eva. Hearing Local's question, Eva chuckled and replied, "Haha, I went to observe Levi and Dantalion. I wanted to see them with my own eyes. I've been keeping a very close watch on them." As Eva spoke, a sly, satisfied smile spread across his face. This excessive enthusiasm caught Tokyo's attention, and he asked, "Did you discover something?" Local's question made Eva pause briefly, calming down before replying, No, they didn't mention anything important, but I witnessed something incredibly amusing at Handmaid Square." "Amusing?" Tokyo muttered, turning toward Eva. Still in his lowly witch form, Eva let out a sinister chuckle, thinking to himself, haha, I guess I underestimated Dantalion a little, but he's still too naive. Love has blinded him, and that means his weakness. Is that girl Levi? This is invaluable information indeed. Back to Eva and Tokyo. As Eva thought about something, a realization struck him. He turned to Tokyo and said, Hey, Tokyo, give me an update on Lady Byman. Tokyo quickly replied, Yes, sir. Lady Simon said that she will fully support us and do everything she can to help. This good news brought a delighted laugh from Eva. Haha, I see. With that, Eva stepped into one of the upright coffins and shut the lid. Moments later, the coffin itself began to emit eerie blue flames, as though something inside was undergoing a transformation. Not long after, Eva's ancient, raspy laughter echoed through the room. Ha ha. Then, he stepped out of the coffin, his demeanor even more sinister than before. Turning to Tokyo, he commanded, Relay every word I'm about to say to Lady Simon. Every single word. No mistakes. He paused, his eyes glowing with malevolence, and declared, I've waited hundreds of years for tomorrow. Be ready. I'll settle the score with interest. As he finished, a chilling smile spread across his face, one that sent shivers down Tokyo's spine. 24 hours later, the Night of Witches. Exactly one day after the downfall of Andromaeus, the long-awaited Night of Witches finally arrived. At the grand entrance of a castle, a powerful voice echoed, The first Demon King has arrived. Make way. At these words, the gathered crowd quickly parted to form a path, their expressions filled with awe and admiration. All eyes turned toward the approaching figure. From the distance, a luxurious carriage came into view, its grandeur befitting nobility. As the carriage rolled to a stop, a group of well-dressed servants lined up on either side. Bowing deeply, the door to the carriage opened, revealing a stunning figure who stepped out gracefully. She spoke with a playful tone. Haha, thank you for welcoming me. One of the servants responded. It is our honor. My lady, we've been eagerly awaiting your arrival. Lady Simon. At his words, all the other servants bowed deeply in unison, their respect palpable. Turning to Simon, she gently asked the man standing beside her, Have you coordinated everything with Eva? Yes, my lady. Everything is proceeding smoothly. He replied promptly. Hearing this, Simon smiled elegantly and said, Good. Very well done. Simon glanced around at the crowd of guests and remarked, There are so many unfamiliar faces here. It seems I've arrived a bit early. Just as she finished speaking, a loud shout echoed from the distance. Make way. Another Demon King is arriving. The arrival of another Demon King piqued Simon's curiosity. Following her gaze, a black carriage came speeding toward the gate in the distance. Fortunately, the driver, clearly experienced, managed to bring the carriage to a halt just in time. The door of the carriage was then kicked open from the inside, and a voice filled with complaints rang out. Ugh, my butt's sore from sitting too long. What's that smell? This place reeks like a pigsty. The owner of the voice was revealed to be a petite lowly, holding a bottle of wine in her hand, her demeanor full of arrogance. This was Barbados, the 8th Demon King, the goddess of black magic and disease. As she stepped out, her eyes immediately locked onto Simon. Her expression soured, and she muttered, Ugh, it's that damned noblewoman. At the same time, Simon, noticing Barbados, didn't look particularly thrilled either. However, since Barbados greeted her first, Simon felt obligated to respond. Oh, Barbados, your taste is as peculiar as ever. I see. Hearing this, Barbados smirked and teased. At least I'm not as easy as you. Didn't you sleep with a centaur? Everyone knows you're pretty loose. Simon calmly raised her fan to cover her face and replied, Really? Even in a setting like this, you can't avoid being so vulgar? You should act more mature. With a body like yours, finding a partner must be impossible, don't you think? It's no wonder you're perpetually childish. Why don't you stop airing your dirty laundry in public? Simon's sharp words clearly hit a nerve, causing Barbados to fume with rage. Oh, really now? Maybe I should slice off those dangling lumps of fat on your chest. As their bickering escalated, the tension between them grew. But before the argument could continue, another loud announcement rang out. Another demon king is arriving. Clear the way. The declaration caught Barbatos's attention. She turned to look behind her, her expression curious. Huh? Who could it be? Current scene. Arrival of Dantalion and Levi. Following Barbatos's gaze, Dantalion and Levi gracefully stepped out of their carriage. Dantalion extended his hand and asked, Levi, are you all right? Take my hand. There's no need. Levi replied calmly. Their appearance immediately caught the attention of the other guests, who began whispering among themselves. Look, it's Dantalion. I heard rumors that he, blah blah blah. The hushed conversations made Levi visibly uneasy. She glanced at Dantalion and said, Your Highness, those people. Dantalion chuckled, then reassured her with a confident tone. I know. It seems everyone here knows us. But don't worry. Just keep walking. His boldness put Levi at ease, and they continued forward. Reactions from the Demon Kings. The arrival of Dantalion and Levi elicited mixed reactions from the two nearby Demon Kings. Barbatos clicked her tongue in irritation, her expression clearly showing her displeasure. Meanwhile, Simon, the busty noblewoman, kept her eyes fixed on them, her thoughts unreadable. Flashback, 30 minutes before arrival. Inside the carriage, Levi's hesitant voice broke the silence. Your Highness, I don't think I can go. Dantalion was startled. Huh? What are you talking about? You're worried? That's not like you at all. With a sigh, he gently reminded her. Remember, there's a ball before the gathering. If you don't go, who's going to be my dance partner? Do you really want me to go alone? Levi didn't respond, remaining silent with her usual icy demeanor. Sensing her unease, Dantalion sighed again and asked, Is this about what happened yesterday? Are you upset? I didn't have much choice back then. You know. His words seemed to stir something in Levi. Memories of the previous day, tinged with a hint of romance, flashed in her mind, causing her to blush slightly. However, she quickly regained her composure and replied, You misunderstand. Your Highness. It's just. The Night of Witches is an event meant for demon kings and high-ranking demons. A human like me. I shouldn't. Her voice trailed off, but her words were enough for Dantalion to understand. She was feeling insecure about her half-human status. To ease her worries, Dantalion grinned and declared, so that's what you're worried about. Fine then. From this moment on, you're officially my fiancé. So stop worrying. Walk confidently by my side. We're the most famous couple right now. Don't disappoint the people who are expecting us to shine. Dantalion's words only made Levi feel even more flustered. Her mind raced with thoughts. What is this man really thinking? I thought all this talk about love was just an excuse to borrow money. But today's meeting wasn't just about appearances. Depending on how things unfolded, it could determine whether war would break out or not. Even the smallest actions could influence the lives of tens of thousands. The main topic of this gathering was calamities. And about yesterday, how could he stay so calm after what he did? As these thoughts swirled in her head, Levi found herself staring at Dantalion. She couldn't understand how he managed to remain so composed, especially after violating the sacred law forbidding demon kings from fighting. The carriage arrives. Not long after, the carriage arrived at the castle gates. Levi's voice broke the silence as she reminded him, We've arrived. As they prepared to step out, Levi caught sight of two demon kings waiting outside. She exclaimed in alarm, Your Highness, it's Simon and Barbatos. Dantalion simply smiled, stepping out of the carriage first. Wait, Your Highness, let me go out first. Levi called out, rushing after him. But Dantalion dismissed her concern with a chuckle. It's fine. We need to show them how affectionate we are, don't we? Come on. Reaching out his hand to help her down, he waited with a confident smile. Levi paused for a moment, then declined firmly. I don't need your help, but thank you. Her polite rejection left Dantalion momentarily embarrassed, but he quickly recovered, confronting the two demon kings. Levi turned her attention back to the two demon kings. Her gaze made it clear that the situation was tense. The two were engaged in a heated exchange, their tempers flaring. But as soon as Dantalion and Levi appeared, Both Simon and Barbados abruptly stopped their argument, turning to glare at them. Despite their stares, Dantalion remained composed. I know, he said calmly in response to Levy's subtle warning. With steady confidence, he approached the two demon kings, bowed slightly, and greeted them politely. Lady Simon, Lady Barbados, it is a great honor to meet you. I am Dantalion, the 71st Demon King. His courteous words caught Barbados off guard. The lowly Demon King glared at him, clearly irritated, and snapped. Hey, don't talk to me with that fake politeness. You lowly runt. I'm in a terrible mood right now. After Barbados's sharp remark, Dantalion's response took her by surprise. Instead of showing irritation, he immediately bowed even lower and said, Yes, I understand. I sincerely apologize for any offense I may have caused. I am still young and inexperienced, and I have never had the honor of meeting such prominent figures. As the two of you, I simply could not pass by without offering my greetings. But if my actions have disturbed you in any way, I deeply apologize. Dantalion's humility and willingness to lower himself left Barbados momentarily at a loss for words. Unable to find fault with his behavior, she could only click her tongue in annoyance and turn away. Fine, fine. It's no big deal, she muttered, walking off. Barbados's thoughts. Despite her outward dismissal, Barbados found herself reassessing Dantalion. This guy's just a low-ranking demon king. Yet even in the presence of me and that big-chested hag, he doesn't show a shred of fear. On the contrary, he's confident in his interactions. A small smirk crept across her face as she thought. So, that's Dantalion. Huh, interesting. Her subtle amusement didn't escape Simon's notice. Watching Barbados, Simon's expression remained unreadable. What thoughts she harbored remained a mystery. Simon's turn. After Barbados walked away, Simon turned her attention to Dantalion and said, Troublesome. I hope this little incident hasn't offended you. I've heard quite a bit about you. Dantalion, the 71st Demon King. As she spoke, her gaze locked onto him, intensely scrutinizing his every move. Then, she noticed the petite figure of Levy, standing quietly behind Dantalion. With a curious tone, Simon remarked, Oh, and the one behind you must be? Before Simon could finish her sentence, Levy quickly stepped forward, kneeling on one knee and introducing herself. My lady, I am Dantalion's servant. My name is Levy Lajalai. Levy's swift and formal reaction piqued Simon's interest. Oh ho, there's no need to be so formal, Simon said lightly. It's all right. As she spoke, she stepped closer to Levy, raising Levy's chin gently with her fan, examining her face closely. A true beauty, Simon remarked with a playful laugh. Haha. Dantalion, standing to the side, had been silently observing Simon with a cold, calculating gaze. When he heard her remark about Levy, he slightly bowed and said, What are you saying, Lady Byman? No one could ever compare to your beauty. Too kind, too kind. Simon chuckled, a playful smile spreading across her face. She then took a closer look at Dantalion's face, examining him carefully before commenting. Oh my, up close. You do look rather handsome. It's an honor to receive such praise from you, my lady. Dantalion responded cheerfully. Hee hee, I'd love to chat with you longer, but let's save it for another time. See you soon. With that, Simon turned gracefully and began walking into the castle. Dantalion and Levy prepare for the challenge. Watching Simon leave, Dantalion stroked his chin thoughtfully, a mischievous smile forming on his lips. Haha, things are about to get interesting, he muttered. Turning to Levy, he added, This time, we must fight to win. But Levy's face turned pale with dread. Why do you look so frightened? Dantalion asked, puzzled. Haha, no matter how many lives I have, it still wouldn't be enough. Levy grumbled nervously. Entering the grand hall, the two quickly made their way into the grand hall of the castle. Inside, countless high-ranking demons had already gathered, their presence filling the air with palpable tension. Seeing the grandeur of the setting, Dantalion couldn't help but remark, Impressive. This really is a spectacular venue. As his eyes scanned the crowd, he noticed something and leaned closer to Levy, whispering, Do you see that? It seems like everyone here is watching us. Levy nodded subtly, her unease evident. From this moment on, there's no turning back, Dantalion added. While many of the attendees seemed indifferent at first glance, their gazes betrayed a clear focus on Dantalion and Levy. It's like we're rare creatures, trapped inside a cage for all to admire, Dantalion mused. Or like prey under the watchful eyes of a predator, waiting to pounce. Shaking off the tension, he continued. But thinking too much about their stares won't help us. A curious question. Lost in thought, Dantalion turned to Levy and asked, by the way, are all these attendees somehow connected to the company? Levy responded to Dantalion's question. I'm not sure. Only high-level managers have access to the client information. She then pulled out a guest list and continued. However, according to the guest list, about 40% of the attendees are aligned with Lady Simon. Another 40% are with Lady Barbados. The remaining 20% are either supporters of Demon King Mambas or neutral. I see. Dantalion sighed, his gaze drifting toward the crowd of guests ahead. He began analyzing the situation. How many of these people could be spies for the company? And if I were their target, how would I escape? As these thoughts raced through his mind, the room was suddenly plunged into darkness. All the lights and candles inside the hall extinguished at once, leaving the guests startled and murmuring in confusion. I can't see anything. What's going on? Voices echoed across the room. Then, faint blue flames began to flicker, casting an eerie, dim light. A man's voice suddenly broke through the shadows. A grand introduction. Welcome, everyone, to the Night of Witches. It is my honor to host this gathering tonight. My name is Eveos Block, a representative of Kinsica Corporation. Dantalion and Levy's reactions. Hearing this, Dantalion's eyes lit up with fiery excitement. Leaning closer to Levy, he whispered, that man, he's Eveos Raku? Levy looked ahead nervously, her face tense as she replied, yes, that's him. He's the wealthiest individual in the demon realm, an ancient vampire, and the head of Kinsica Corporation. She hesitated before adding, I betrayed him because of you. He's my former master. Ah, so the boss himself decided to show up? Dantalion murmured to himself, his eyes narrowing as he carefully studied Eva's observations. Meanwhile, across the room, Eveos Block had his gaze fixed on Dantalion and Levy. A satisfied smile spread across his face as he thought, I've waited so long for this moment. Finally, I found you, Levy La July. Even as a filthy half-breed, your cleverness stands out. You've even managed to become the lover of a demon king. How despicable, but impressive. Still, that's as far as you'll go. I will witness your downfall with my own eyes. As the thought crossed his mind, Eveos raised his voice to make an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, I hereby declare the Night of Witches officially. But before he could finish, a grumbling voice interrupted him. Hey, old man, what's with all this nonsense you've been spouting? The unexpected interruption came from none other than Barbados. The lowly Demon King was loudly chugging a bottle of wine, her sudden outburst drawing everyone's attention, especially Eveos and Dantalion, who both seemed perplexed by her actions. Barbados's antics. When she finally finished drinking, Barbados wiped the corner of her mouth and complained, I'm tired. Let me rest already. Having some stinking old man host this event? What a bore. Disgusting. Bring me more wine. I can't stand this dull, ancient corpse. Her brazen comments left the entire room stunned. In the distance, Dantalion, however, was silently cheering her on in his mind. Go, Barbados. You can do it. Bardus. Eveos's reaction. On the other hand, Eveos's expression remained calm. After hearing Barbados's remarks, he gently responded, I understand how you feel, Lady Barbados. But, before he could finish, Barbados interrupted him by yelling, What's that, old man? Are you daring to challenge me? No, not at all. Eveos quickly replied, bowing slightly. His eyes, however, subtly darted to the side, as if signaling someone nearby. Simon steps in. Moments later, another voice rang out, filled with authority and disdain. Know your place, Barbados. It's embarrassing to share the same rank with someone like you. Eva has prepared such a wonderful event for us. The voice belonged to none other than Demon King Simon. Barbados immediately scowled at the sound of Simon's voice. Ugh, it's you again, you big-chested hag. She grumbled while desperately trying to tilt her wine bottle to extract the last few drops. Realizing the bottle was completely empty, she casually hurled it towards Simon. The bottle shattered upon impact, sending shards flying everywhere. Tensions escalate. Simon's eyes narrowed, her expression growing colder by the second. But Barbados wasn't finished. Pointing her finger at Simon, she shouted, "Go back home and play with your horses. Stop pretending to be so high and mighty." Simon's response to Barbados. Hearing Barbados's fiery words, Simon let out a sigh, her tone dripping with disdain. "My goodness, how utterly crude. I suppose it's because you look like a child, that your thoughts are so childish as well. It's truly pitiable. Only adults can understand the meaning of decorum, but I doubt you ever will." Barbados's outburst. Simon's sharp words struck a nerve with Barbados. Unable to match Simon's wit, she clenched her fists tightly, her teeth grinding in frustration as she growled. "Huh? Who are you to call me a child? How about we settle this right now? If you dare." Barbados's furious outburst only seemed to amuse Simon further. "Ho ho ho." Simon chuckled, her face lighting up with delight. "Oh, are you angry now?" she asked with feigned innocence, her smug expression only fueling Barbados's rage. Barbados's teeth clenched audibly, and her aura began to emanate a dangerous energy. Tension builds. The air between the two demon kings grew heavy, their auras clashing as if they were moments away from breaking into a full-blown fight. The atmosphere in the hall became suffocating, as if everyone present could feel the impending storm. Intervention by Demon King Manhwa. Just as the two were about to strike, a deep, authoritative voice cut through the tension. "Both of you, calm yourselves immediately." The voice belonged to none other than Demon King Manhwa, the fifth-ranked Demon King and a figure of nobility. Barbados clicked her tongue in irritation, but begrudgingly stepped back, turning away in frustration. Simon, ever composed, bowed slightly and said, "My apologies, Lord Manhwa." Manhwa then turned to Eva and said, "Please, proceed." "Lord Eva." Eva nodded quickly. "Yes, of course." The night officially begins. With the tension now diffused, Eva took a deep breath, his voice regaining its confidence as he declared, "Now that all necessary parties are present, I hereby declare the Night of Witches officially begun." Dantalion's thoughts. Hearing Eva's announcement, Dantalion couldn't help but laugh nervously. Both excitement and unease swirled within him as he observed the three powerful demon kings. These are truly formidable demon kings, he thought to himself. Even though I'm also a demon king, I'm at the very bottom of the rankings. One small mistake on my part, and they could tear me to shreds in an instant. Dantalion's eyes narrowed as he began analyzing the situation. If I were Eva, I'd align myself with the high-ranking demon kings first. Once I had their support, I could dominate the rest of the meeting. Everyone else would simply watch, as I devoured my prey without facing any real danger. Despite his strategic thinking, Dantalion couldn't shake the nagging feeling of discomfort that gnawed at him. Why do I feel so uneasy about all this?